Judy Casper. Here. Deanna Hinton. Here. Riley Hoagland.
Here.
Diane Coos. Here. Rick Mark.
Here.
And Mitch Parsons.
Here.
Great. I'm going to suspend the flag salute, Pledge of Allegiance, if you don't mind, and move right to the consent agenda. And we have 2 items on the consent agenda. Number 1 is the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, a request for off-premise sales license for 101 Inspirations. And number 2 is the minutes of the regular meeting, March 23rd, 2020.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Mr. Hoagland and a second from Mr. Parsons for the consent agenda. Any discussion?
I just
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah.
I sent a few edits to Kathy for the minutes, but nothing substantive.
Great. All right. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed with a nay? All right. Consent agenda passes. Thank you. We have, next item is public comments. And I understand there are people in the chamber. Why don't we deal with them first? David, if you could, or whoever's in the chamber, facilitate some people coming forward and the famous empty chair.
One problem we're gonna have is when I go, this is turning down, you'll hear what they say back.
So where do you want me?
Like this laptop.
Okay.
No, see you.
I unmuted it, David.
Did you put that, did you wipe it?
I wiped it down.
Okay, thanks. We'll be using these between each, we
Okay.
just did it, so. we'll do it.
All right. Is someone timing this?
Yes.
Sure.
Is Kathy? Okay.
Sure.
All right. Go ahead, sir. Introduce yourself if you would.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm Jeffrey Zimmel, and that's spelled Zimel. I live at 3235 Northwest Jetty. I also have a home in Sheridan, Oregon, 883 Northeast Hill Street. I am here to make an announcement that I am starting a citizens group which is dedicated to supporting business people in the entire county. We're going to call it Lincoln County Citizens for Economic Recovery. We don't think we're being listened to. I mean, we feel like as citizens, we feel like there's a nonchalant attitude amongst leadership and amongst many citizens. You want to keep the message that is being sent in this tourist economy, the message that is being sent out to people that come through our town is you're not welcome here. We want you to go. We want you out of our hair. And we got to turn that around. Or I've talked to too many businesses already, and we're forming and we'll become an actual action group that are in tears. They're not making it. They're not feeding their kids. It's terrible. And you know what? You can sit and joke. You can sit and have fun. You can do all you want. But until you realize that the future of Lincoln City businesses is in your hands, you better take it very seriously. And what I heard about today regarding the vacation, the vacation rentals, you've come up with some pretty darn stringent regulations that will virtually wipe out half of their cash flow for the year. You made it impossible for them to get economic return. And I'm saddened, and I'm going out, and I've been out all day long. I'm collecting names of business people. I'm listening to them, and I will be their voice. Now, I'm part of a group, a partnership that owns shopping centers in Oregon and in Nevada. We're projecting as a little company, we have 14 properties, but we're projecting that we're going to lose 35% of our small shop mom and pops. This is serious. This isn't just a passing thing. And we respect our tenants and we respect the government. But, you know, I don't want to see the government go down because of a lack of income. I don't want to see businesses go down. I don't want to see crying children. I don't want to see people that are hurt. So I have agreed with my wife that I'm going to go out and represent the small business people or the business people in the county. I'm going to be their voice. And I'm going to do everything I can to pull together the business community so we can accurately communicate to you. And this is sickening. I mean, I'm sickened by what our governor's doing. I'm sickened by what the municipalities are doing, what the county is doing, how cavalier you are about the whole thing. I'm sorry. These are fighting words. These are survival times. You've got to listen. You've got to pay attention to details. And, you know, we have to pay attention to use the right protocols to open our businesses. We will. We're not stupid people. We're intelligent. You can't operate a business on stupidity, and we won't. And we'll do everything we can to protect our customers. But don't make it impossible for us to succeed. And that's how we see it. And you know what? I'm the start. I'm just the start of communication. And I love this city. I used to own Lighthouse Square. I did all the preliminary work for the Fred Meyer in Newport. This community is my community. I've owned property in Toledo, Oregon. So, you know, I live here now because I chose to want to live in this community. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Zemper, for coming forward.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask if he could leave his information with David, whoever's there? I'd like to talk to you after the fact.
Okay, I think he heard you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for doing that, Ken.
It's ready to go. Just speak towards the computer.
Hello, my name's Doug Weldon, and we own...
Mr. Weldon, what's your first name again?
Doug Weldon.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and we own a business by the Waves in Nelscott, and I'd just like to make the statement that we don't have a pension. So this building that we have is our retirement pension. If it's taken away from us because of this pandemic, it's going to be devastating for us. The bills just don't stop coming in. Lincoln County, let's see. Well, I just like this thing is hurting us just like it's hurting everybody else in this town. You're going to hear from some other folks here. I'm just one of them. I like to say that I care about my neighbors, and I care about the other people, second homeowners, I've heard commentary from politicians in this town in the past, none of you folks up here, but that said that they just don't care about second homeowners. Well, I'd like this council to know that I do care about my second homeowners. There are people that I know that I visit with them, and I care about them. Some of those folks are hurting very badly because of this. I know one fella just bought a house across the street from me, and this hit right when he started making his mortgage payment. So he's hurting. I've talked to boat owners that do electronics on boats down in the Newport area. I said, well, the fishing industry is pretty well shut down, isn't it? And they said yes. They're fit to be tied, to be honest with you. And this just isn't right that this is closed down. With this, the science is in. That I've heard that over and over again, how the science and the facts dictate the decisions that are going to be made. Well, it's there. There's no new cases here since you made the last decision to extend it for 30 days. We haven't seen any, to the best of my knowledge. So it doesn't make sense to me to continue this thing. We need to open this town up and allow people to breathe, to make a living, and I don't like taking gifts and grants from government, to be honest with you, and it doesn't make me feel good at all to have to do that. I'm being forced into doing something I just don't really want to do, and I have to accept those gifts on the taxpayer dollar, and I'd rather be working. I'd rather be making money. I'd rather be enjoying people. The people that come here, 95% of them are good people, and they come here to enjoy themselves and spend money in our town. It's really just too much, and I hope that you'll pay attention to the folks that are talking today and get this thing open. It needs to be open. And
thank you, Mr. Weldon. Thanks for coming forward.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Hi guys, a lot of you already know me. I'm Dan with the Grill 1646. And before you start my time, I'd like a real quick second to say thank you to a couple people. You know, there's a large amount of local scuttlebutt, some negative, some positive, and you know, all around what you guys are doing. And it's very important to me to say thank you for the ones that are representing us and out on the streets, what I call boots on the ground representation. Judy Casper, for noticing what was going on with the community feeds and those kind of things and coming out to figure out what's going on exactly, physically putting her body there and seeing it and helping. And Riley, making sure that all the negative publicity was documented on that little parade last week. It was highly appreciated to see that somebody took the time out of their days to make sure that we were being listened to and being informed. And I appreciate that. And for that, I say thank you. So now I would like to start, and as a business owner, there's a lot of things I agree on with these guys, but I'm here for a completely different thing. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the OLCC lightened restrictions on marijuana sales, liquor sales, and all sorts of other things that they are the governing body on. And one of the things that they did was they allowed on-premise license holders, and let me put that in front of the camera so you guys can see this. This is my full on-premise license that I was approved for 3 years ago, to apply for a 90-day temporary permit so our product doesn't expire and we don't lose those funds and investments that we've made, allowing us an opportunity to put this product out on the street under a temporary basis without a permanent change to our license, so that way we don't lose all of that money. And I am being forced down a rabbit hole by two of the city officials to go through a background check, which I've confirmed with the police department that I've already checked. You guys already voted on my liquor license. And I want to make it very clear that this right here, if I can get the camera to zoom in, was issued on April 7th and expires on July 15th. It is no good after that date. This is to get me through the pandemic. This is an application to save my business, not an application for new authority and privileges. This was issued on April 7th. My full on-premise license, not an off-premise license, was issued on April 7th. There has been no change to my license. My background check has been approved. You guys voted and approved my liquor license. This is a COVID-19 temporary situation that you guys are not recognizing. Why we're all struggling and my business is down 75% and I'm still out here beating people's doors down and helping this community, like a couple of you guys are. I'm being asked for more money and to go through an approval process that will far outweigh the tenure of this license. To give you a timeline, my initial application for my permit was made back in 2018 on March, and it wasn't issued until July, over 4 months. I have a 90-day permit, that's 3 months, that will expire before any of this happens if you guys force me down this rabbit hole. The $100 fee is a minute point. I've had people volunteer to pay it. It's not that. I think that it's being going about in the wrong way, and I think I need city council to make sure that they recognize that I'm already licensed, approved, my background check is approved, and help me save my business, like all of these guys are here to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dan.
Sir.
Dan, I had a question.
Yes, sir.
I'm not a sir, but I'll say
Oh,
it.
I'm sorry. I saw Riley.
Everyone sees Riley. Okay, before you escape, I just wanted to say thank you for all that you've been doing for the community. It's really been wonderful.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Sure. I second that, absolutely. Thanks, Dan.
That's all. And
All right, thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Dan? Is that yours?
Thank you.
Hey, how's it going?
All right.
My name is Chris Donner. I own Game Over Arcade here in Lincoln City. I also live there, above the building. The reason I'm here is just like everybody else. We're struggling. I've spoken to a lot of people who've never got any of the SBA loans, myself included. Still trying to get that SBA loan. In fact, today I decided to drop our bank, which is Bank of the West, and I went over to TLC and made a call to them. I never got a phone call back. They said that even their numbers are pushed back. Everybody that I talked to was like, oh, you guys are good. Business owners, you guys are being taken care of, right? No, we're not. I don't know if anybody's seen the KGW things. It's been pretty crazy lately, but I'm also really tired. I apologize. We just had our son, and yeah, so I'm tired. The reason I'm here mainly today is we've dumped our entire lives into these businesses, me not included. I know most of these people here have dumped everything that they have into these businesses to support this county, this community. These restrictions that we're on right now, everybody doesn't like them. For the most part, I believe everybody in this room has adhered to them, me included. We have not, as much as I would love to just say screw it and open my doors, we have not. We don't want to put anybody at risk. We won't do that. Our intention is never to hurt anybody, but at the same time, what happened to our freedoms? It should be my choice whether or not I want to go to any one of these people's businesses with or without a mask, with or without gloves. I was in the military for 11 years of my life, my wife included. Freedom is everything. We're in America, and we are right now being forced to close our doors. We're being forced to sit and isolate for this invisible enemy. Look, I get it. It's killing people 100%. And I'm not taking that away from anybody. I don't want to. It's their choice whether or not they don't want to come into a business. It's their choice whether or not they want to go into public. I'll tell you, Friday was the first time that I had to go to the grocery store. I went to Safeway. I'll tell you, it was impossible to social distance in that store. And it disgusted me to know that that is okay, but yet I can't open my doors. These guys can't have people in their businesses. It was disgusting. I tell you, it was wall-to-wall people. You could not move in that place. Sure, they had all the arrows. Sure, they had the placards. Sure, they said, hey, let's do the social distancing. But was it happening? Was there any of you guys there looking at what was happening? No. People are losing everything they had, me included. 11 years, 4 combat deployments I volunteered for to freaking open my business so I could do what I wanted and provide for my family. I never wanted any handouts. I don't ask for anything. I've never asked for anything. I've busted my ass my entire life for everything that I have. I have an extremely great work ethic. And it's killing me right now to see that we're forced by no means of our own to close our doors. At this point, we've had 2 months. What has this state done in 2 months? And I'm not blaming you guys. I'm just saying at a state level, 2 months now. 2 months we've been closed. And I keep hearing, oh, well, we need to get the testing. We need to get the testing. That's bullshit. Sorry, excuse my language. It's not right. That should have already had happened or it been working, and then we should have been doing that stuff. It just seems like people are just laid back, and I get it. Look, my employees, hey, by all means, I call them all the time. I check up on them. They're making more now. Where's the incentive to go back to work once you guys say, hey, let's everybody goes back to work? Well, hey, I'm scared. I don't want to go back to work. Well, that might be because you're making more money than you ever made. And that's not my fault. That's disgusting that politicians are saying, hey, let's give them more money to stay at home. Well, look, our numbers are out. We've had 6 in this county, no deaths. And honestly, that 6 is even questionable because we all know, or a lot of us know, that at least 1 or 2 of them weren't even from here. At this point, we need to get back open. We were told since the beginning, flatten the curve. Where's the curve? Where is it? That curve should have been, that was flattened weeks ago. We need to get back to business. We need to build up our immunities. We need to get outside. I just saw somebody went to the park the other day. They didn't even get out of their car. They were at the park looking, and the cops came and hassled them to get out of the park. Are you kidding me? People live in apartments. They need to get outside. Look at the weather. It's changing. It's changing for the better. People need to get outside, get those immunities built back up. Being cooped up in your house is the worst thing ever. Look at that ship. Look at that Navy ship with all those Navy personnel and the Marines. Every one of them got sick. You know why? Because they were cooped up in that damn ship, breathing recycled air. We need to get out. We need to get better. We need to start opening things up. And I'll tell you, I have a big building, very high overhead. I live directly up above that building. I've been in that building. Riley, you know me. I've been in that building since day one. I don't plan on going anywhere. We just had another kid. My dad came over, we remodeled, and we built another room for my son. That's where we plan on being. We invest everything we make right back into the business. And that's how we have this amazing arcade in this town. That's the only way, because that equipment is stupid expensive. Every one of those machines in there is almost $10,000. It's freaking stupid. I don't have that kind of money. I'm barely I can't afford it. And that's our business. So now when I'm forced to start selling those equipment, who's going to come? Who's coming? What, are they going to come and look at my floor? I need that equipment to run the business. And now I'm being forced to sell that equipment just to keep my lights on and my house. If I lose that building, guess what else I lose? My home. I didn't come here to tell a sob story. Everyone here has this story. And I'm sorry it takes so long here, but I just wanted to get my voice out there, and we're hurting. We need to open up. We got to get this done. That's all I got to say.
I got something.
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you and both your wife, Jennifer, right? Is it yes. Jennifer? Yeah. For your years of service. Absolutely. I appreciate you coming forward, Chris. I know it's not easy, and I see the emotion and everything behind, and I appreciate that. You know, I want to let everybody know that there is a GoFundMe for your business. So everybody, if they do want to participate, I'll just shoot it out there. So that's that. I would just Google GoFundMe, Game Over Arcade, and I know you guys are doing your best, and I appreciate you coming forward, and thank you very much. And we're we're trying, and I thank you for that. So thank you.
If it's okay, I got one more quick point.
Make it quick.
Real quick. The money that we make in spring break, that carries us through the whole entire year. I hope everybody knows that here. I just spoke with the Mazalon owner 2 days ago. He was crying to me in his own store saying, Chris, we didn't get our spring break money, and we're not looking like we're going to get our summer money. We're not going to make it through the winter. And I told him, we're feeling the same way. Spring break, you know that. Spring breaks are bulk. We didn't get that this year, and it's going to be a miracle if we can make it through this next winter. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Good evening.
Hello. I think everyone on this knows me, but I'll introduce myself for those watching that don't.
Please.
I am Marcy Baker. I own Marcy's Bar and Bistro and Zest Creperie and Tea House in the Ocean Lake District. I just want to say real quick, I did email a public comment in regards to a separate issue. And that were my comments as a concerned citizen that has lived in this town for 24 years. But with this time, I'm forced to prioritize because there are so many issues at hand. And I'm here to ask you all for your help in advocating for reasonable guidelines for the service industry to reopen in Lincoln City. After 2 months of losses, which I guarantee you no one's made a profit over this time, we are looking at a 10 p.m. curfew on service on top of many other restrictions, some very, very understandable and reasonable that any of us would have done anyway. Those are great. I'm not complaining about those. I'm speaking to a 10 p.m. curfew that has no basis in public health. This 10 p.m. curfew is on on-site service for all restaurants and bars, regardless of whether or not they serve alcohol. I've been on the phone with an OLCC commissioner. I have talked to the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association. I have talked to Representative Gomberg. He is on board with this being ridiculous, and he's going to bat for us, which is part of why I'm here asking you all to help as well, because we need more voices. The only justification that the state has attempted to give for this 10 p.m. curfew is that as it gets later in the evening, you all and me and every single one of us might lose track of how much we've had to drink and not be able to be trusted to behave responsibly and be accountable. Not to mention that makes no sense for the places that do not serve alcohol. Let me tell you that this will just encourage people to drink more quicker and have as many drinks as I will let them have. My business is 60% of my business is after 10 p.m. I'll tell you, a third of my customers that come in, my regulars, don't even drink alcohol. There is a reason I have a full non-alcoholic cocktail menu and that I do more food sales than most bars would do, because I focus on food and feeding people. I have always stayed open ever since I found out I was allowed to after 2:30 until 3 a.m. to feed people leaving the other bars and to feed the people who get off work that time of night. And I'm not going to be able to do that. Instead, I'm going to be forced to have to compete with every other restaurant in this town that I designed my business to cooperate with. I believe in cooperation over competition. And I'm telling you, if I'm forced to do a dinner service from 5 to 10, which is a clientele I've never tried to get, because I encourage people who ask me about dinner to go and support another local restaurant and come back after dinner for entertainment. This is going to have a ripple effect through our service industry. Restaurants have already been closed for 2 months, and now we're going to have limited table space and now limited amount of time that we can even serve people dinner. There is something called the Siracusa Principle, which my dad pointed out to me that everyone needs to remember. I don't know if you guys know who my dad is. He's Don Baker. He has a very long history. His entire career was in public safety. And not only did he dedicate 23 years of his life to this community and to building things for this community, which he'd never asked for credit for, he also reinvested a huge part of his retirement into this community, in my business. It wasn't something handed to me. It is something I've earned and something I have worked for every single day for the last 4 years. The Syracuse Principle says that any restriction on our civil liberties needs to be temporary with a sunset clause. This 10 p.m. clause is not to mention all the other restrictions that have no estimation for how long we need to plan for this. They need to be the least restrictive means possible to protect public safety. That has to be supported by scientific evidence. There has been zero attempt to give any scientific evidence to support this 10 p.m. curfew. And it also has to be not arbitrary. Now, I don't know if you guys think there's any way to prove that 10 p.m. is a dangerous twilight hour, but I'm telling you, it is entirely arbitrary. And for the state to come out and say that this is only here because we cannot be trusted to act responsibly undermines the OLCC and how they regulate businesses. And it also undermines me as an owner and accuses me of not being capable of maintaining a safe atmosphere, which I have always done and never had an issue with overserving. I have a huge issue with this curfew, and I am worried that this is going to set a precedent on unlimited restrictions of our civil liberties that are not justified. They're not even trying to justify this with science. So that was what I came here to say, but I also want to second what Chris said about Safeway, because I was there yesterday and it made me sick to see what is allowed there when my business is not allowed to operate and I'm considered a public health threat. How do we have to lose our businesses while that's allowed to go on in our community? It is unacceptable, and it is arbitrary that these restrictions have been put on us for 2 months and they haven't even been asked to comply. The governor gave them an out. They did not have to comply to the standards that small businesses did. And I also want to second the thing about the police harassing residents, because my neighbor was told that she could not stand and look at the ocean. She was told to move along from a loudspeaker standing over 21st Street when she was just trying to get a breath of fresh air away from her computer. And I'm not okay with that. And it's not the only issue. Police patrolling our neighborhood. She was woken up at 10:30 at night, the night before, told to get out of bed and move her car because it was parked in the street. And I don't know if you remember this 24-hour storage of public vehicles where Chief Palmer sat there and explained to you guys that that would never, ever be used to harass residents. And yet that happened to my neighbor this weekend. So there are a lot of issues, and I appreciate you guys being patient with my comment.
Thank you, Marcy. Deanna.
Oh.
You're muted.
There, took a second. Marcy, I just wanted to thank you for all that you've been doing for the community. It's really appreciated. Thank you.
Yes, and I do have people come in all the time to use my bathrooms because they have no other option. So just so you guys know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Jerome Black. I represent Scout Northwest Trading Company, Overnight Art, and the Siracusa Motel. There's no science anywhere that says anything different than we're all going to be exposed to this at some point. The restrictions put on don't make sense across the board. From day one, I've said if Safeway is the weakest link in the chain, whatever happens there is going to go to everybody. There's no stopping it. So everybody else going to tighter restrictions doesn't make any sense at all. The restrictions I've seen on hotels we're not going to open. It doesn't make sense because we're not going to get as much traffic as we need to make money. We're going to have to spend money on chemicals and signage and building a parking lot, check-in station to get less business than we normally get. We're going to have to do hourly wipe downs of things, daily check-ins of our employees' health questions and taking their temperature, all of which seems to be counterproductive. It doesn't make sense, so we'll just stay closed. We lose less money not doing anything. At Scout, we've been shut down because we're in a mall. Now they're talking about retail's okay if it's standalone, but what does that mean? Does it mean no building can be connected to another building? We've lost $5,000-$10,000 worth of product because it's spoiled. Nobody's done anything to prevent us from losing spoilage. When this first started, thinking it would be a short-term problem, fairly short-term, we built an axe throwing cage to add a new venue to our store so we'd have a little bit better ability to recover. In the middle of it, somebody called the city, started some trouble, and now we got to pay a bunch of fees and crap, jump through some hoops to get it all inspected, which didn't seem to follow the instructions we were given when we started. I feel like since we've opened our business in this town, I've done everything I can to support every cause that somebody walked in and said, can you donate to this? We've donated to it. We helped the city when they want to put on a Pixie Fest. We went out of our way. And what we feel we've gotten in return is very, very minimal. Maybe nothing. Maybe. And now this, it's just ridiculous. We created 21 jobs in this county, and we probably would be lucky to get back to 6 or 7 by the end of the year if everybody gets their head out of their ass and gets this opened back up. Where my hometown, if I came in and created 21 jobs in a couple of years, they'd be tripping over themselves to help us keep moving along. And I haven't seen that on any level. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Donald Olson. I'm here representing Overnight Art. Every point I wanted to make today, everyone has touched on. But I do want to add, I would just want to make sure that each and every one of you is really understanding the position that small business owners are in. When this all happened more than 2 months ago, every bit of income we have stopped. We went from we have a few online sales here and there to a few more. It is not enough. Every ounce of money in our accounts went to make sure our employees got the last of their paychecks, and they did. But what that did is leave us, the owners, with nothing. We're going on 10 weeks with zero income whatsoever. Every loan, grant, or assistance we've applied for, we've been denied or are still weeks drawn out into this. Myself and my partners all applied for unemployment. All of us were denied. We were then told that now the CARES Act opens us up for the public. We still have not gotten this. 10 weeks, zero income. We pour every ounce of our souls into our business, everything we are. I have nothing outside of my business, as do all of us. And there is no support for us. And the regulations that they expect us to follow going forward only hurt us. And I just ask that each and every one of you keeps that stuff in mind when you're and push for us be on our side when stuff is asked for regulations. Please help us. We create jobs, we bring tourists in, we do all of this stuff for the community that we love, and we are getting nothing in return right now. We have been left hung out to dry, and I just need you all to keep that in mind. That's all I have.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
You want me to mute this?
Yes, please, if you could. Then I can turn it off and we can hear you there.
So that we have no more public comment.
Okay, that's the end of public comment. Thank you. All right. Ron, do you have some for email?
I do. I have 51.
Okay.
Most of them are short.
Okay.
This first one came from Tiffany David Sayer. I am an owner of 2 homes in Lincoln City, my primary residence as well as a vacation rental. My opinion and concerns regarding the stipulations potentially being placed on vacation rentals is coming from the owner's standpoint, but is driven from my role as a Lincoln City resident. The home that I own as a vacation rental is approximately 2,600 square feet. That is ample space to accommodate more than 6 guests. I use this home as a rental as means for families to spend quality time together in Lincoln City. It is inconceivable how a home this size would have such a limited number of vacationers permitted, especially compared to the standard size hotel room. This makes no sense. Families come in all shapes and sizes, with blended families often having larger numbers. Not allowing more than 6 people to rent my home is discriminating to large families. This cannot be allowed. Minimum nights and mandatory gaps are not necessary. Cleaning is done thoroughly between guests, and cleaning and disinfection are routine practices. Placing limitations on guests is placing limitations on income needed to pay the mortgage of this rental. This will shut down my summer income, which is needed to sustain ownership of this property. I am not the only owner facing this crisis. My personal income is being threatened by capping occupancy and placing stipulations on vacation rentals. Foreclosures and empty houses are devastating to a small city. Reopening our economy in firm 21-day phases is a viable option to evaluate progression. This allows for hope to remain for struggling businesses on our coast. Lincoln City prospers on tourism and thrives during our summer months. These limitations that will result in cancellations are not only harming me, but will destroy Lincoln City. Please allow Lincoln City to prosper, allow families of all sizes to gather, allow us to be hopeful. Please consider what this would do to vacation homeowners. Please consider what this will do to our economy. Please consider Lincoln City. Thank you. This next one is from Crystal Ariel. Can we please get an official Facebook page on Lincoln City? Currently, we have to rely on getting our info from other cities' pages, the county page, and unofficial Facebook groups. It would be great to have support for our city and be able to receive timely, reliable information on social media. Please and thank you. This is from Kathy Aha, Lincoln City Mayor and City Council. I am writing to you with my concerns about the loud and obnoxious convoy from mostly non-residents that took place this weekend along Highway 101 in the Lincoln City limits. This protest violated the city's noise ordinance and the Oregon statewide pandemic stay-at-home orders. I'm wondering why our police department did not enforce these laws. I am very upset by the active participation of City Councilor Riley Hoagland during this protest. He was broadcasting live from Facebook while he was driving his car with the convoy during the rally. He even admits at one point in his video that he is in the chaos and seems to be enjoying that chaos. Throughout his video, he is yelling, making derogatory remarks, laughing, etc. He was not just documenting this event. He was having fun and was an active participant in an event that was dangerous for the community. He was using his cell phone while driving, which is illegal and dangerous as well. In my opinion, it is unacceptable for a city councilor to be involved in this disruptive activity. Moreover, it concerns me that he will allow continued aggression, protests, and disruption in the city by his alliance with this group as a public representative. I doubt very much that this is the behavior citizens want from their elected officials. I urge you to take whatever action is necessary to prevent future chaotic and illegal events like this. The loud blowhorn, honking, and screaming was totally disruptive to me and the people I know in my community. Furthermore, I urge Councilor Hoagland to act in a professional, intelligent manner instead of promoting chaos and illegal activities. In closing, I would like to add that there is a large percentage of retired service personnel that live in the city. Some have PTSD from serving this country. The activity this weekend was totally disrespectful and disturbing to people living along Highway 101 that suffer from PTSD. There are many reasons we have a noise ordinance in this city, and it should be enforced. There is also a stay-at-home order, and I would like to request that the city enforce that order as well. Thank you for your time in hearing my viewpoint today. This is from Laura Joki. Shaniko population 14. Dufour population 567, Wallowa population 853, Prineville population 9,748, Drain population 945, Fossil population 503, Manzanita population 333, Gerhard population 1,531, Job Day population 2,251. All of these towns in Oregon have government representation on Facebook and other social media. We are being laggards. Keep asking yourself why, Council. We can have an Explore page and a police page, but why not the central government of Lincoln City? Why are you making it so much harder when you don't have to? You could have better interaction, participation, and communication today if you would just do it. What's the resistance, Council? I want to know. Please answer why a simple thing like a Facebook page is possible for these tiny towns, but not for us. With the police and tourism covered, it's almost like you don't want us well informed, and that's sad, frustrating, and insulting. This whole pandemic would be a lot easier to manage with centralized on-time messaging, and it would help the town operate far more smoothly. It doesn't need to wait for anything like a new website. In fact, it can help support your current hard-to-navigate one. It can start tomorrow. Use the free tools at your disposal. Please, hope to see some action. Keep up the great work. Thank you. This is from Aaron Linfoot with Meredith Lodging. Lodging is such an integral part of the tourism on the Oregon coast. It feeds a tremendous amount of the local restaurant and shop scene. Businesses and all of the workers and their families have suffered tremendously. Lodging is typically feast or famine. We are in a prolonged famine. Requiring occupancy at 6 regardless of property size significantly hurts our local property owners and our staff that depends on the work to support their families and local economic contributions. I will lose staff. They will move if we do not fully open up. Vacation rental properties provide a unique asset class that allows for guests to practice social distancing with neighbors and communities. They allow for a safe amount of distance between properties, which is something that hotels are unable to provide. Rooms next to each other and access doors in front of each other. June is already showing as a very low occupancy month, and this requirement will result in the few existing bookings property owners have to likely cancel their stay. Please work with the already established occupancy licensing requirements. Thank you. This is from Brent Clark. Lodging is a crucial part of the business economy on the Oregon coast. It contributes tremendously to the local restaurants and shops. Businesses and all of my co-workers and their families have suffered tremendously. Lodging has been dead for 2 months. We are suffering. Requiring occupancy at 6 regardless of property size significantly hurts our local property owners and my work colleagues that depend on the work to support their families. Vacation rentals provide social distancing. They are located independently from other rental properties, more so than any hotel. Please work with the already established occupancy licensing requirements. This is from Queenie Mello. I work as a member of the local lodging economy. My job relies on properties to be rented, which in turn allows me to provide food for my family. These last 2 months have been so challenging. Please help open up vacation rentals. They provide social distancing to all guests and neighbors, more so than any hotel can offer. Please do not limit occupancy at 6. My ability to stay working and living on the coast depends on it. This next one is from Jose Reyes. Option 3. Lodging is a crucial part of the business economy of the Oregon coast. It contributes tremendously to the local restaurants and shops. Businesses and all of my co-workers and their families have suffered tremendously. Lodging has been dead for 2 months. We are suffering. Requiring occupancy at 6, regardless of property size, significantly hurts our local property owners and my work colleagues that depend on the work to support their family. Vacation rentals provide social distancing. They are located independently from other rental properties, more so than any hotel. Please work with the already established occupancy licensing requirements. This next one is from Mary Private. Lodging is a crucial part of the business economy on the Oregon coast. It contributes tremendously to the local restaurants and shops. Businesses and all of my co-workers and their families have suffered tremendously. Lodging has been dead for 2 months. We are suffering. Requiring occupancy at 6, regardless of property size, significantly hurts our local property owners and my work colleagues that depend on the work to support their family. Vacation rentals provide social distancing. They are located independently from other rental properties, more so than any hotel. Please work with the already established occupancy licensing agreements. This is from Jordan Grant. Attention, Mr. Chandler. I know you have been inundated with feedback from the community as to how the city should reopen. You know better than anyone how important tourists are to this city, and I know you will do everything possible to reopen in a safe manner. I work for Meredith Lodging, and the livelihood of my family and 200 others depends on how quickly things can reopen. Based off the structure of VRDs, I would ask that you reconsider the maximum occupancy of 6 individuals max. If this occurs, we will face more layoffs, and I just don't see the risk in honoring current occupancy limits. This next one is from Armando Reyes. I work as a member of the local lodging economy. My job relies on properties to be rented. My life and future in Lincoln City depends upon opening up of short-term rental lodgings, which in turn allows me to provide food for my family. These last 2 months have been so challenging. Please help open up vacation rentals. They provide social distancing to all guests and neighbors, more so than any hotel can offer. Please do not limit occupancy at 6. My ability to stay working and living on the coast depends on it. The next one comes from Queenie Lagula. I work as a member of the local lodging economy. My job relies on properties to be rented, which in turn allows me to provide food for my family. These last 2 months have been so challenging. Please help open up vacation rentals. They provide social distancing to all guests and neighbors, more so than any hotel can offer. Please do not limit occupancy at 6. My ability to stay working and living on the coast depends on it. This next one is from Louis Mello. To whom it may concern, I work as a member of the lodging economy. My job relies on properties to be rented, which in turn allows me to provide food for my family. These last 2 months have been so challenging. Please help open up vacation rentals. They provide social distancing to all guests and neighbors, more so than any hotel can offer. Please do not limit occupancy at 6. My ability to stay working and living on the coast depends on it. The next one is from Lorena Torres. I work as a member of the local lodging economy. My job relies on properties to be rented, which in turn allows me to provide food for my family. These last 2 months have been so challenging. Please help open up vacation rentals. They provide social distancing to all guests and neighbors, more so than any hotel can offer. Please do not limit occupancy at 6. My ability to stay working and living on the coast depends on it. The next one comes from Gabriela Mendoza. I work as a member of the local lodging economy. My job relies on properties to be rented, which in turn allows me to provide food for my family. These last 2 months have been so challenging. Please help open up vacation rentals. They provide social distancing to all guests and neighbors, more so than any hotel can offer. Please do not limit occupancy at 6. My ability to stay working and living on the coast depends on it. The next one is from Andrea Moore. I know that there has been a lot of controversy regarding the convoy that took place on Saturday. I wanted you to know how much I appreciated Riley Hoagland's live broadcast of what was happening in our town. From my home, I could hear bullhorns, yelling, and sirens, and it was intimidating. Watching Mr. Hoagland's unbiased video helped ease the fear and spread the misinformation that tends to happen on social media. Although some may disagree with this approach, I found it reassuring, and it provided safety in knowing our town was being watched out for. Next is from Linda Walling. Open the city up, please. The next one is from Adriana Martinez. I work as a member of the local lodging economy. My job relies on properties to be rented, which in turn allows me to provide food for my family. These last 2 months have been so challenging. Please help open up vacation rentals. They provide social distancing to all guests and neighbors, more so than any hotel can offer. Please do not limit occupancy to 6. My ability to stay working and living on the coast depends on it. The next is from Jennifer Piper. Dear Lincoln City Council, I am a local resident of Lincoln City and work in the short-term lodging industry. It has been heartbreaking to see what has been happening to my coworkers and their families during the lodging closure order. Now we are confronted with a proposed reopening plan that may annihilate any hopes we had about being able to continue to make a living here. A decision to limit vacation rentals to a total occupancy of 6, regardless of property size, would be absolutely devastating. The financial repercussions are tremendous. I and my coworkers find ourselves asking, will we be able to continue to support our families? Will we lose our home? Will we have to move away from this community that we love? My husband is a beloved teacher and coach at Taft High School. If I lose my livelihood, we will have to move. Please do not make that type of decision that will force businesses to greatly reduce staffing or shutter completely. This decision impacts not only lodging business owners, lodging employees, homeowners of vacation rentals, other businesses that rely on being able to serve the visitors that stay in the vacation rentals, but also impacts all those who depend upon positions that our spouses hold. The ripple effect is astronomical. Vacation rentals are an ideal lodging configuration that naturally provides social distancing. Homes are located independently and separately from other properties. Guests staying in these homes can check in and out remotely with no person-to-person contact with any staff, a very different structure than a hotel. Please do not put restrictions in place that will be detrimental to me and my husband and many, many others' ability to continue living, working, serving, and supporting the community of Lincoln City. The next one is from Jillian Nettleship, to whom it may concern. I felt it necessary to voice my opinion on lowering the occupancy of short-term vacation rentals. I work as a team member for one of the local lodging companies. Not only do I love my job, but I love the company I work for, what it stands for, and how it has such an incredible impact on the local community and economy. Lowering the occupancy will do nothing short of hurting this entire community, including myself and my family. Surely you can understand how trying the last 2 months have been. Please help us open up vacation rentals. The wonderful thing about vacation rentals is they offer complete safety and assurance of proper social distancing for all, our guests, our neighbors, and community, something hotels unfortunately at this time are not able to accommodate. Please do not limit the occupancy to 6. This will shatter not only all lodging companies, but most importantly, their hundreds of employees, and the impact will be felt tremendously in the local economy. At a time like this, do what is best for the community and support it, not destroy it. Kindest regards. Next one is from Samantha Wagner. I am just wanting to write a letter letting you know I appreciate Riley's video of the drive through the rally. It really helped me understand not only what was going on to make sure that it wasn't super invasive, but also it was really nice to see Lincoln City virtually because I really miss it. I don't live too far, but I can't wait to visit again. The next one is from Patrick Alexander. Ron, like many other residents of Lincoln City, I had serious concerns when I heard of an out-of-area group was planning to travel to our town for an open for business rally. I want to take a moment and commend Chief Palmer and the Lincoln City Police Department, as well as Councilor Riley Hoagland, for the positive and proactive way in which they researched and engaged with the rally group. Councilor Hoagland's decision to live stream the rally is also to be commended. By following the rally as it made its way along Highway 101, Councilor Hoagland acted as our community's eyes and ears, allowing viewers to judge for themselves the impact that the rally had on our town, as well as the responses it garnered from those it passed. The live stream allowed hundreds of people, including myself, to bear witness to this event without having to leave our homes, an act of public service that served our community well in its efforts to continue social distancing. I hope you will share these remarks with the council at tonight's meeting. The next is from Nancy Moore. I wanted to reach out direct and let you know how much I appreciated the on-the-spot coverage by Riley Hoagland of Saturday's car rally. It's a nice thing to see that Americans can still be socially responsible while voicing their First Amendment's right. Great idea. I know it was not organized or endorsed by the city, but it calmed some of my fears about folks storming the beaches like in California. Lincoln City is blessed to have such dedicated and responsible council members. My hat is off to all of you. Thank you and stay well. This next one is from John Cheek. This was actually sent to the county of which I received a copy. Reopening plan for Lincoln County. The 3 health signs that must be seen before reopening. The Oregon Health Authority daily briefing number of new confirmed COVID-19 cases, exclusive of preemptive cases, has shown a steady incremental increase. The curve has neither flattened nor turned downward as required. Since the largest number of visitors to Lincoln County come from counties within Oregon, whose numbers of cases continue to rise, and from counties in Washington, whose confirmed case numbers also continue to rise, any discussion of reopening needs to be delayed. There is no question that many of these visitors entering Lincoln County will be infection carriers, either asymptomatic or not, and will be spreading COVID-19 here, at the grocery stores, at the hardware stores, at the liquor stores, at the gas station, and any reopened commercial facility. Prerequisite for phased reopening in Oregon. The required decline in prevalence has not been met. The minimum testing regime is a false metric based on the admirably low number of current cases in Lincoln County. Any rapid rise in the number of imported cases, as in a second wave explosion, would quickly overwhelm testing capability. Contact tracing capability is also a false metric based on low current case numbers and is woefully inadequate to meet the needs of a rapid rise in the number of imported cases. Isolation quarantine will be critical if the number of imported cases jump. Serious preparation is essential. PPE availability, especially quality masks, continues to be a significant problem. Short-term rental reopenings. The phased reopening of hotels needs to be separated from VRDs. As staff facilities, hotels have some degree of control over compliance with physical distancing and the use of face masks. VRDs, however, are very well known for their lack of control and compliances. Shooting off fireworks when Lincoln County is in a state of severe drought, as per the United States Drought Monitor, with very elevated wildfire threat is a regular example. VRDs are completely without oversight. Those same visitors with potential as important COVID-19 carriers and no control will be in the grocery store. Second wave of infections. Johns Hopkins Medicine and every other respectable medical university in the country is fully expecting a second wave of infections, with 90% of the population having had no infection. The second wave in some areas will be far, far larger than the first. Adequate testing, serious testing capability, and adequate contact tracing capability, serious contact tracing capability will be needed, or the imported second wave will be out of control. Please consider very carefully before you rush to reopen. Consider the type of people who will be importing COVID-19 viruses into Lincoln County. It's almost a standard characteristic for VRDs to have 14 to 16 people in a two or three bedroom dwelling, regardless of excessive occupancy. There is no better environment in which COVID-19 virus is able to flourish. This is the second wave of hotspots. The next one is for Dan Souza. Hello, I just wanted to say that I personally appreciate Briley Hoagland's video post of the drive-through that took place this past weekend. It gave a non-biased point of view. I just thought it was nice to get a different perspective from this very unique and ever-changing situation that we are all currently in. I think that people like Mr. Hoagland are an asset to the community. Thank you. The next is from Roy Cobble. I would like to state that I really appreciated Riley taking a video of the rally on Saturday. This next is from Danielle Hutchinson. Hi, Ron. I wanted to reach out to give my support to our City Councilor, Riley Hoagland. He has always been a voice, eyes, and ears for the people. From my understanding, prior to Saturday's convoy, he was contacted by numerous people with concerns. He validated those concerns and immediately worked to come up with a plan. He took a level-headed approach to this, to be involved. In my opinion, he did so to be a voice, eyes, and ears for the people. As a small business owner and someone who is incredibly immune deficient, I appreciated him being my eyes and ears. I could see my business in the video as well as see what was happening with the sirens I was hearing. I didn't have to sit at home thinking the worst while worrying. I still believe that we have freedoms in this country, even if I personally don't agree with the way people may choose to display their freedoms. I believe that is what Riley was showing and walking the talk. He still has my vote. Thank you. The next is from Carrie Kello. Dear Lincoln City, I work for a local vacation rental company and live in the area. These past 2 months, I have watched as my co-workers and their families, as well as my friends who own local businesses, suffer due to the loss of business from COVID-19. It has been a challenging time for many, including me and my family. I know that many of us are not just hoping, but truly relying on things to get better soon. I just heard that there's the possibility of setting a maximum occupancy per vacation home to 6, regardless of the home's size. This change would significantly impact the income that vacation rental businesses bring, and therefore would affect my coworkers and their families and the homeowners I work with who have so greatly suffered from the recent loss of income. Our vacation homes are following lenient procedures above CDC standards, and they provide social distancing as they are located independently. I am asking that we please do not make things harder than they have already been on so many of us locals and on the people who have invested in our local economy, and that we please work with the already established occupancy licensing agreement regulation requirements. Thank you. The next is from T. Lee's Feast Newman. To whom it may concern, I hope this email finds you well. I was wanting to share my thoughts on the outcome, specifically surrounding the aftermath of Riley Hoagland's reporting of the event. I do not think and feel what he did was in error or wrong. Knowing Riley and his love and support of our community, I realized he wanted to share what was happening for a few reasons. One, to report to our community about what was actually happening, and also to clearly show the facts of the car convoy through real life action and live video, rather than sitting behind the screen to voice options and objections as many in our community do. As Americans, we absolutely have rights stated in the Constitution and amendments without causing harm or wrongdoing to another individual. Riley has always shown a mature and respectful approach to many situations in our town. He does not mean harm or cause negative disruption. I can see he strives for the best and is an active, positive member of our society. Again, I hope you find this email with understanding of wanting to share my support for Councillor Hoagland. Thank you kindly. The next one is from Damian Huff. Dear Lincoln City Council, I am a local teacher here in Lincoln City, and I am hoping you will not restrict vacation occupancy to 6 people. It will be devastating to the lodging company that my wife works for. One of the reasons I have been able to stay in Lincoln City as a teacher and coach is because my wife was able to work where she does. Limiting the occupancy could potentially force her to have to relocate to another city, which would cause me to have to relocate to another city. The hospitality industry is what Lincoln City thrives on and helps create hundreds of jobs. It has become incredibly clear as Lincoln County has the highest unemployment rate in the state due to the current restrictions on lodging. Crippling short-term lodging by limiting occupancy would make an already bad situation worse. Being one of the longest tenured teachers at Taft 7 through 12 and a coach of multiple sports, it would be a shame to have to move away and would impact so many students and their families. Thank you for your time. The next one is from Larry Slatery. To whom it may concern, Riley is a good guy. He brings value to our community. He has passion for helping people, and he absolutely should not be removed from his position. Who has been live streaming videos of how to make masks on social media? Who has been working to keep positive vibe around the community while things are pretty dark? Everyone is working at ripping one another apart right now, and all the while Riley is sharing bits of wisdom for those who will listen and work as a true politician by addressing concerns on both sides of the ideological aisle and trying to meet people halfway. I absolutely did not agree with the convoy coming to town. I believe it was well within their rights to protest, and I believe they did it in a peaceful fashion. Had the numbers that were projected by the people in that group been accurate, I can promise that things would have gone differently. Having said that, Riley is not responsible for those people coming to town. From what I understand, he had a friend and constituent come to him for advice on how to do this properly. He obliged as he should have as an elected official in a democratic country. He live streamed the event to help alleviate the fear that a lot of people had about this situation. It did help. I'm glad that he did it. I respect him for doing so, and there's no reason in my mind as a constituent and business owner in this town that there should be any taking any action against it. Best. Next one comes from Mario Mello. I need your help. Please email this to this address, public comments. Use this as a letter. I work as a member of the local lodging company. My job relies on property to be rented, which in turn allows me to provide food for my family. These last 2 months have been so challenging. Please help open up vacation rentals. They provide social distancing to all guests and neighbors, more so than any hotel can offer. Please do not limit occupancy to 6. My ability to stay working and living on the coast depends on it. The next one comes from Rhonda Brewer. Attention, Ron Chandler. Reason, Riley Hoagland video of drive-through rally. Ron, I'm taking this opportunity to share my appreciation for what Riley Hoagland did to safely share what was transpiring during the recent drive-through rally. When I learned through Facebook that a group from several out of the area locations was planning on coming to Lincoln City to demonstrate their political and personal opinions, I was opposed to this happening. It was mainly because of all that I read gave the impression that this rally was not being planned to share ideas with a desire to learn from one another. I saw it as a way for them to show off their opinions, be the center of attention, and cause even more stress for those living here who already had their own strong opinions. I was pleased the police chief had reached out to find out what this group had done at previous rallies. I had decided to stay away rather than become upset with what I viewed as a selfish, self-centered bullying of this community. However, there was the issue of their First Amendment rights. So I appreciated Riley shooting the video of the drive-through rally. His observations and experiences that he encountered painted a fuller picture of what was taking place that I would never have realized if I had just stood in one spot. It was like comparing the experience of taking a picture of a single frame and getting to watch the entire movie. Thank you, Riley, for taking the risk of being misunderstood in order to better inform the citizens of Lincoln City. Best regards. Next is from Jill Keck. Hi, Ron. I lived in various parts along the Lincoln City coast for more than a decade. I was a small business owner, and at one time I had a shop in Taft. There I became a member of BAMA, and I had the opportunity to learn a great deal about the history of Lincoln City. I've been on market boards, a chamber member, a homeowner, etc. I'm currently teaching and a mom of 3. So, long story short, I have a multi-dimensional stake and a deeply rooted love for this area. I wanted to take a moment to express my gratitude for the information Riley Hoagland shared this weekend regarding the drive-through rally. I was informed of this event from a friend. Initially, I thought there would be several hundred vehicles infiltrating the coast. As well, there is fear associated with possible conflict. I began to search for more information on Facebook, and that is where I discovered Riley's post about the rally. I appreciated the viewpoints he spoke of. I began to question my fears and concerns. Why should I be afraid of what may happen? Why can't a car drive on a road? For instance, there was a lot of traffic heading to the beach on Highway 20 Friday, so if people are taking issues with the rally, why isn't the government dealing with the traffic influx in general, as those vehicles are most likely not local either? Watching the event helped tremendously. I noticed the goodness in the issues that locals and the rally had. Riley's commentary was great. He took a possibly super stressful situation and eased tensions. He let rally members go around him, and I'm sure the drivers appreciated that. I'm guessing the rally participants were possibly expecting local drivers to maybe try and break things up, but grace begets grace. As well, Riley knew many of the locals, which I could tell helped. This is a hard time. There's a lot of fear. Riley did what he thought was right to try and document what occurred. He offered thoughts, and he clearly said they were his own. What he did was brave. Rather than sit and make judgments, he made a difference. I appreciate a public official having actual knowledge that makes Lincoln City better equipped to make effective decisions. The more council and other government members get out there and experience things that may be a mental stretch, the better the city will be. Thank you, Riley. This next one comes from Emily Castleberry. To whom it may concern, as a member of the local lodging economy, me and my husband's livelihood, as well as that of our child, is solely dependent on tourism and vacation homes being rented. To say that these last 2 months have been challenges is an understatement. We need vacation rentals open up like yesterday. I have been filing for unemployment for 6 weeks and not one claim has been processed, and getting through the unemployment office is a lost cause and we receive no stimulus from the feds. Please help your residents since the government is not. Vacation rentals provide more social distancing to guests and neighbors than what any hotel can offer. Please, please, please do not limit the occupancy to 6. My ability to stay employed and surviving on this beautiful coast of ours depends on it. This next one comes from Lourdes Acosta. I need your help. Please email this to the address publiccomment@lincolncity.org. Use this as this letter. I work as a member of the lodging industry. My job relies on properties to be rented, which in turn allows me to provide food for my family. These last 2 months have been so challenging. Please help open up vacation rentals. They provide social distancing to all guests and neighbors, more so than any hotel can offer. Please do not limit occupancy at 6. My ability to stay working and living on the coast depends on it. This is from Kathy Gill. Hello, I thought I'd share how much I appreciated City Council's Riley Hoagland's live stream of the protest drive-through of Lincoln City. I was worried about the event and any negative interactions it might spur, so I was happy to get a front seat view of the proceedings. This next one is from Annette Guido. Dear Mayor, City Council, and our City Manager, I understand that the discussions are underway. Reason reopening overnight short-term accommodations. These are critical to survival of our local businesses. However, it will likely be risky to prematurely welcome guests from out of the area into our community. I have 2 main points of concern. 1, overnight accommodations will draw infected and contagious visitors into our community. You will probably have stats at hand about where overnight visitors are coming from. Most likely Multnomah, Clackamas, and Marion counties or nearby states of Washington and Idaho. They will come from California or fly from the eastern seaboard. Think New York and Boston. Many of those have far higher current and projected COVID-19 infection rates and death rates. Entry into our area is an immediate risk to our friends and neighbors who have worked hard to abide by stay-at-home orders. Governor Brown's order still specifies minimizing non-essential travel. If Lincoln County qualifies for phase 1, reopening as expected, that phase will last a minimum of 21 days from 5/12/20. So we'd be looking at a date of June 5th as the earliest to consider. We should see how we do with this phase 1 experience before moving ahead to the opening on June 1st. 2, enforcement of limits on numbers of guests and communication, reason expected behavior. How will we actually enforce the draft exceptions of limited number of guests? That is no more than 6 persons at any one time. What will local authorities do if a household known to or not known to an owner exceeds the number of allowed guests? Will hotel or VRD owners suffer consequences if they allow guests to ignore the rules? Will the guests suffer consequences? Finally, I do want to remind you of 2 medical points. 1, people with COVID-19 infections shed virus and are contagious before they have any symptoms at all. 2, the risk of contracting the infection, then spreading in our community, can start as soon as 3 days after one visitor infects another, his or her shared short-term accommodation. Thank you for your careful decision-making at such a critical time in our community. This next one comes from Emily Castleberry, to whom it may concern, as a member of the local lodging economy, My and my husband's livelihood, as well as that of our child, is solely dependent on tourism and vacation homes being rented. To say these last 2 months have been challenging is an understatement. We need vacation rentals opened up like yesterday. I've been filing for unemployment for 6 weeks and not one claim has been processed, and getting through to the unemployment office is a lost cause, and we receive no stimulus from the feds. Please help your residents since the government is not. Vacation rentals provide more social distancing to guests and neighbors than what any hotel can offer. Please, please, please do not limit the occupancy to 6. My ability to stay employed and surviving on this beautiful coast of ours depends on it. This next one comes from Nikki Hayes. Dear Ron, I would like to let you know how much I appreciate Riley doing the video of the Trump parade on Saturday. We, the people, have no news sources as to what is happening if our citizens didn't post on Facebook. I had read that there would be thousands coming from around the state to protest, and if a business was open, they would visit it. My husband and I were very concerned as people in similar groups have shown up bearing guns. Chicago. We have received no information from Lincoln City, not from the mayor or you, sir. We have one small local once-a-week newspaper, and that is our news. Is it possible to hold a news show daily? We have some citizens able to host it on Channel 4. Claire posts updates frequently on the state of the county, but from the city crickets. Thank you, Riley, for attempting to keep us informed. This one comes from Damian Huff. Dear Lincoln City Council, I am a local teacher here in Lincoln City, and I'm hoping you will not restrict vacation occupancy to 6 people. This will be devastating to the lodging company and my wife works for. One of the reasons I have been able to, I'll finish. I think I've read this one, but I'll finish it. One of the reasons I have been able to stay in Lincoln City as a teacher and coach is because my wife was able to work where she does. Limiting occupancy could potentially force her to relocate to another city, which would cause me to have to relocate to another city. The hospitality industry is what Lincoln City thrives on to help create jobs. This has become incredibly clear as Lincoln City has the highest unemployment rate in the state due to the current restrictions on lodging. Crippling short-term lodging by limiting occupancy would make an already bad situation worse. Being one of the longest tenured teachers at staff 7 through 12 and a coach of multiple sports, it would be a shame to have to move away and would impact so many students and their families. I believe I've read that one already. Sorry, I'm getting some of these twice that have just come in short recently. This one is from Jose Guerrero. Hello, my name is Jose and I work in the lodging industry. These past 2 months have been very challenging for my family and I due to short-term rentals not being allowed to rent. My job relies on these properties getting rented so that I may be able to provide food and shelter to my family. I ask that you could please help and open up the lodging industry. I believe that they provide good social distancing from neighbors and others. I also ask that you do not put a limit on the guests on the properties. Coming from a big family myself, I would not be able to choose what family members to take with me. Putting a limit will only cause people to come and therefore people to not come, and therefore it will cause me to lose more work and not be able to provide for my family. Thank you for taking the time to read my email. I believe I read that one already. The next one is from Giovanni Mello. To whom it may concern, I work as a member of the lodging economy. My job relies on properties to be rented, which in turn allows me to provide a roof and food for my spouse and children. These last 2 months have been very challenging. please help open up vacation home rentals so I can continue to provide for my family. They provide social distancing to all guests and neighbors, more so than any hotel can offer. Please do not limit occupancy to 6. My ability to stay working and living on the coast depends on it. The next is from Marcy Baker, the city staff and city council. I understand in time of crisis, those in leadership positions are still just people too, and don't always know the right actions to take. I appreciate the work that has been done by you all to help businesses and residents. We can use all the help we can get. Still, I have a very large concern about the lack of one big issue being addressed, which is the state of mental health of our community. The degradation is being reflected in the neighbors turning on neighbors and horribly heartbreaking comments and personal attacks on social media, along with keyed cars, rocks being thrown, and more common yelling obscenities at strangers we hear on our streets and neighborhoods. I would like to thank Councilor Hoagland for the 2 videos he shared on social media this week. For those who did not see, the first video was letting everyone know about the drive-through rally that was scheduled for Saturday, encouraging our community to please be respectful, and the second, a documentation of the entire said rally, which became a huge point of contention in the community over the preceding days. I appreciate the time and energy being put into proactive action to encourage civil, lawful, and peaceful expressions of our constitutional rights. The rally participants were smiling, waving, and positive. Unfortunately, a large part of our community was not. Instead of listening to Riley's plea for respectful behavior, many went out of their way to be aggressively negative instead. A sad look for our town. Riley has been the only council member, as far as I have seen, that has addressed the issue of a very negative mob mentality that has been growing in this community through community discussion groups on Facebook. I have seen repeated comments on these groups of people planning all their future vacations elsewhere, selling their second homes, and forsaking Lincoln City as a whole because of these few incredibly loud and aggressive people who continue to insult, degrade, and attack anyone who they have declared a threat. I have seen business owners planning to sell and get out because they feel our town is full of hateful people. I have personally been attacked and slandered by these people. I have many screenshots of these comments from people who have been longtime supporters of our community, followed by the continual repeated attacks they receive in response. I did not include them as people's names are tied to these, and some groups have rules against sharing screenshots. But I encourage you to take some time and see for yourself if you are unaware of how nasty the discussion among your constituents has become. Common decency and mutual respect are devolving by the day. I am, frankly, more concerned about the state and future of our economy as a whole than I am about my 2 businesses in the more and more seemingly doomed restaurant sector. This negative image being forced on Lincoln City by these few immature, disrespectful people will have a long-lasting ripple effect through our economy for years to come. These people are openly saying the mostly retirement community of our town does not need tourists based on businesses or tourism dollars, and they don't care if the tourism never comes back and the tourism-based shops all disappear because they don't matter anyway. This message is being put on Explore Lincoln City's post as well, and also in response to news being published in the Valley. This message is being heard. Are you sending a louder one? I called Mayor Anderson the weekend before short-term rentals were closed with my concerns about the mob mentality after our entry into the town was sprayed, painted with "Go Home" in the middle of the highway, which is still there. I also spoke with Ron Chandler the following week with my concerns about these folks feeling more and more entitled and it not being publicly addressed by any city leadership. I'm very concerned that Councilor Hoagland is the only one among you that has stepped up as a leader of this community and addressed this ugliness blighting our town. Thank you, Riley, for showing us that someone cares. Praying for Lincoln City's future for all our sake. The next one is from Jose Flores. I work as a member of the local lodging economy. My job relies on property to be rented, which in turn allows me to provide food for my family. These last 2 months have been so challenging. Please help open up vacation rentals. They provide social distancing to all guests and neighbors, more so than a hotel can offer. Please do not limit occupancy at 6. My ability to stay working and living in the coast depends on it. I may have read this one, but I'm not sure. Dear Ron, this is from Nikki Hayes. Dear Ron, I would like to let you know how much I appreciate Riley doing the video of the Trump parade on Saturday. We the people have no news source as to what is happening if our citizens didn't post on Facebook. I had read that there would be thousands coming from around the state to protect, and if a business was open, they would visit it. My husband and I were very concerned as people were in similar groups have been showing up bearing arms in Chicago. We have received no information from Lincoln City, not from the mayor or you, sir. We have one small local, once-a-week newspaper, and that's our news. Is it possible to hold a news show daily? We have some citizens able to host it on Channel 4. Claire posts updates frequently on the state of the county, but from the city crickets. Thank you, Riley, for attempting to keeping us informed. This next one is from Don Coaster. I just wanted to say we very much appreciated Riley Hoagland's information and video all weekend around the Women for Trump caravan. Once again, he's doing all he can for our community and kept us informed so we didn't have to rely on gossip. The next is from Sally Dunn. I just wanted to write to show my support for the Facebook Lives that Riley Hoagland did throughout the last few days. 1, to appeal to citizens of Lincoln City to not leave people with a bad impression of our town and to consider how people will feel in the long run about coming back to support our businesses with their tourism dollar. Oregonians getting out of their cars or getting out in their cars and coming here to take out was actually a nice gesture that I appreciated, no matter the political affiliations. 2, the video Riley made following the caravan was fun, unifying, and so positive. He was clear he wasn't agreeing or disagreeing with them, but basically allowing locals to see with their own eyes what was actually happening. Rumors can start flying and people's fears get the best of them if all they're hearing is the negatives. I'm thankful that Riley asked us to please not be mean to people and showed us what was really happening in real time. Thank you for your community service. The next one is from Angelina Arzola. I work as a member of the local lodging economy. My job relies on properties to be rented, which in turn allows me to provide food for my family. The last 2 months have been so challenging. Please help open up vacation rentals. They provide social distancing to all guests and neighbors, more so than any hotel can offer. Please do not limit occupancy at 6. My ability to stay working and living on the coast depends on it. That was the last one. Mayor, I'm sorry if I read a couple of them twice.
We'll forgive you. All right. Ron, I wonder, switching topics though, but still as a result of the comments, is there any chance you could comment or anything about the Dan at the Grill and his issue with the liquor license, that temporary license?
Yeah, I'll do my best on this.
Ron, you may want to ask Kathy. She has the answer.
Mayor, who do you want to hear from?
Well, I'd go with you.
Okay. As I understand the process, there is that, well, first of all, they already have a liquor license, an indoor liquor license. They had applied to have one for an off-premise, or an on-premise. Now they applied for one to be an off-premise. The state issued that license. They applied for it for a 90-day period. The process that we have also would require that to go through you, and there is a $100 fee for that. So when Kathy was telling them they needed to still come through you, that was correct information, but they had 90 days to do it. They did not want to extend that beyond the 90 days. And so they didn't want to spend, so they didn't like the fact that they had to spend $100 for something they already had that would expire in 90 days, and then they didn't want it after that. And that seems to be where the confusion comes from. They do have a license now from the state for off-premise sale of alcohol, and that will expire in 90 days. If they would like to have it beyond that period of time, then they have to go through the process of receiving permission from you.
Okay. Thank you. If we could then move on. We've got public hearings, and each one of these, Mr. Appicello, is there a way, since all of these the request is to continue to June 22nd, 2000.
I would think a motion to continue ZOA 2020-01, 2020-02, 2020-04, and 2019-08 to the June 22nd, 2020 meeting would be appropriate. Those are agenda items I-4, 5, 6, and 7.
Could I have that motion?
So moved.
That's from Mitch.
Second.
All right, and a second from Riley. Thank you, Mr. Appicello. And any discussion? Hearing none. All those are in favor of the motion signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed with a nay? All right, motion passed. Thank you very much.
Your Honor, you did skip over the housing update presentation. I'm not complaining, but I'm just pointing that out.
I'm just looking for something quick, Allison. Sorry, I apologize. Okay, well, let's go back up and let's hear about housing.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. We are here, Anne Marie and I, Planning Director, are here to present a housing update to you. It's been about a year since you've had your last housing update, so a lot has happened since then, although the information and statistics have not changed very much. So I will go ahead and outline the staff report. Again, the objective of this meeting is to provide you with an update on housing efforts. In 2009, the Urban Renewal Agency adopted a substantial amendment to the Urban Renewal Year 2000 Development Plan to include Economic Development Assistance Program, such as a project category to the plan. This allowed the Urban Renewal Agency to spend money on economic development specifically. In a couple years later, the Lincoln Community Land Trust completed a county workforce housing needs assessment that helped provide a platform for more information and really put some data to the housing crisis. And the next year, some economic development options were presented to the Urban Renewal Agency for consideration at a future meeting. Those were some new commercial tools that were adopted in 2013 and 14. 2014, we the workforce housing was added to the urban renewal list of possible projects under the economic development category, recognizing that workforce housing and housing in general is a big component of economic development for our city and community. 2017, you all, through the planning department, embarked upon a housing needs assessment, along with buildable lands inventory and economic opportunities analysis, with the understanding that those three things are all very closely tied and interdependent. 2018, in February, the city and the Urban Renewal Agency made available public properties to the development community, trying to see what was of interest, and 3 of those properties were residential, and 4 of them could also include residential in a mixed use capacity. 2018 in March, you were provided with a housing update, and then 2019 in March, that was your city council work session on housing, and that is the packet of materials that's attached to this staff report because Mr. Chandler provided a very comprehensive look at housing, and Anne-Marie and I felt it was still relevant and good background. Then the planning department got busy with some of those recommendations from the housing needs assessment. And in 2019, you all reduced parking count for multifamily residential construction. You also made available 4 flat dwellings to increase density in some areas of town. And tiny house developments were also made available. And there were some changes to the accessory dwelling unit ordinance that removed parking requirements and some subjective design requirements and the owner occupancy requirement, which, and those were originally allowed in 2014. We were a little ahead of the time, I think, as a community with a lot of things that you all decide to take on. And I think we were one of the earlier coastal communities that provided the option for accessory dwelling units. In 2019, there's a county housing strategy plan that was accepted by you via resolution 2019-2, and that was a partnership with Department of Land Conservation Development, or DLCD grant, and that included participation from Lincoln City, Newport, and the tribes. Working with the county to help find some ways to remove barriers to workforce housing. Lastly, in 2019, last year, the Urban Renewal Agency and you all in council decided to create the Economic Development Toolbox, and you directed staff to establish criteria for those tools, including ways to help with housing or residential properties. And that is under discussion on a different agenda item later for you this evening. Just to reiterate the summary of need in Lincoln City. Lincoln City has been proactive in addressing housing efforts at all parts of the housing continuum. So that is from homelessness all the way up to market rate. There are a total of 5,734 housing units in Lincoln City. And we have a fairly even distribution among owner-occupied dwellings, renter-occupied dwellings, and second homes or short-term rentals.
And then
wrinkled clothes is like dry clay, and then you add water.
And the need for housing units in Lincoln City over the next 20 years, basically to the year 2036, is between 1,484 units to 1,814 units. So about 1,500 to 1,800 units is what we need to bring online based on our workforce housing forecasts. The average of those two scenarios is about 82 units per year for 20 years. That's of all different types of units. So what have we built? Anne-Marie, do you want to talk about what Lincoln City has built in the last few years?
Oh,
Sure, I would love to. As I was putting these numbers, this is the one thing that I did for the presentation, so don't let Allison fool you. She did the bulk of this. I just put these numbers together for the dwelling units. And I found it interesting that we kind of did an every other year number. As you can see, in 2016, we had 83 total dwelling units. And then in 2017, that went down to 66. But then in 2018, that went up again to 89. And then in 2019, it went down again to 57. I couldn't really find any rhyme or reason for that. Just something interesting that I noticed as I was putting together the numbers. I broke down 2017, 2018, and 2019 by the type, including single family, multifamily, duplexes, manufactured homes, and accessory dwelling units. Interesting to note that in 2017, we had 9 manufactured homes. In 2018, we only had 1. And then in 2019, we went back up to 6. ADUs, we have not had that many of. 3 in 2017, and then 1 in each in 2018 and 2019. So far in 2020, we haven't had any ADU applications, even with the lesser restrictions. We have had a lot of inquiries on the ADUs, but so far haven't really had any applications. And I don't have too much to add to that, unless council has any questions.
Based on your averaging, though, we're not hitting our 20-year mark of 82.
We are not. We're short by about 6 and a quarter.
Yeah.
So we need to up it a little bit.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah. Okay. Deanna?
Anne-Marie, I'm just curious, what have we done in 2020? What kinds of interest has there been? Housing, single family housing, or multifamily, anything?
I would say, well, in April, we issued 6 single family houses. In March, we issued 5. Unfortunately, I don't have the numbers for January and February. We've done some duplexes. We've done some manufactured units. We will have apartment buildings this year. We'll have 24 units across the street from City Hall, and Oxenholt intends on moving forward with the 30-unit building at the corner of Highway 101 and 36, Northwest 36. And he's telling me that should be within the next couple months. They'll be submitting that building permit application. So my estimation for this year is that we will meet or exceed the 82 units per year.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. Allison.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. And so of those counts, though, do you know if any of them are income qualified, or are those purely market rate?
Those are purely market rate.
Okay, great. Okay, so moving on to the next section of the housing staff report, we wanted to just briefly let you know what has been completed and what is pending since March 2019 when you had your work session. So the things that have been accomplished, I think, are quite a lot. For transitional housing, you all did property acquisition and did a partnership with Helping Hands, basically through a loan for improvements. to deliver services for transitional housing. And we also have done some workforce housing for affordable units that are income qualified. There was property acquisition for access and partnership that continues with Innovative Housing, Inc. to construct income qualified rental apartment homes that will be 80% of median family income and below. On average, it'll be 60% of median family income, but there are going to be some units that are offered at 80% and below. We completed assisting Proud Ground with home buyer down payment grant assistance through Oregon Housing and Community Services, which made available, I think it was about $500,000 for Lincoln County. In the Economic Development Toolbox, we are having conversations with the Urban Renewal Agency and the City Council and you all this evening about residential opportunities. We are working on issuing an RFP or RFQ for real estate services to select a realtor in order to sell city, what we call remnant properties that have been declared surplus. That is an estimated revenue of about $150,000 that could be used to further housing objectives. There were efforts that are nearly done to create shelf-ready plans for affordable housing home plans that people can just use, minus the engineering that needs to go into foundation type connections to make those house plans actually get on the ground. And so there's a little bit of liability clause work that needs to happen before those can be uploaded to the city website, but that project is nearly complete. We also continue to implement recommendations from the Lincoln City Economic Opportunities Analysis and Housing Needs Assessment, the County Housing Strategy Plan, the Statewide Housing Plan. They have 6 priority strategies over 5 years that started in 2019. There's a Lincoln County 10-year housing plan 2.0, which is what we used to know as At Home in Lincoln County, to help at all parts on the continuum for housing. And then there's the League of Oregon Cities Housing Needs Survey. So there is a ton of information out there. I'm happy to provide it to you if it's of interest. There also were some grants received from Lincoln County. We had $20,000 for city homelessness efforts that went towards the transitional housing property acquisition. And we also had a grant received from Lincoln County in $15,000 for Urban Renewal Agency workforce housing efforts. That was also going towards property acquisition for access for the city-owned development site at Northeast 25th Street. And we also have had some Business Oregon Brownfield Assistance Program funds that we have really needed and made good use of in property acquisition. And also for existing city properties and doing the phase 1 environmental assessments that a lot of developers are interested in seeing before they're ready to commit to partnering and building on city property. The other thing I want to mention is we do have ongoing partnerships pending budget approval. I know budget is a particularly challenging situation given the economic crisis that we're all facing, that our small businesses are facing. The budget as proposed is to include some funding for Proud Ground. That would be for a grant match if they should decide to apply for an Oregon Housing Community Services grant again, like they did before. We would be prepared to partner. And I believe Newport has also put in their budget about the same amount. As you might remember, Newport also has a construction excise tax that goes toward housing. And so their money, I think, will be a little bit higher than $50,000 in total. I think they had about $200,000 come in on their construction excise tax. And you all had decided not to proceed with that, which is fine, but staff staff will not be bringing that forward any longer in discussion for tools for workforce housing. And then also Habitat for Humanity of Lincoln County. The county has provided some single family lots to Habitat for Humanity to develop, and that is in Lincoln City in the north part of town. And so Habitat for Humanity is getting ready to start working on developing housing. There are time restrictions that the county has placed on these nonprofits to really get some housing on the ground. And so Habitat for Humanity has requested about $75,000 for pre-development assistance in order to help get that housing built. And again, that's all pending budget process. We also have the City Economic Development Toolbox. That is if residential tools are created and funded. And we also have the Urban Renewal Agency Economic Development Toolbox. Again, if residential tools are created and if they are funded, then those would become available to help out with workforce housing efforts. The other thing I want to mention is there a few years ago, maybe more than a few years ago, the city participated with the county in some housing weatherization funds. They are for very low income people, primary residents, and basically it's a loan that goes as a lien on the house. And when the house is refinanced or sold, that's when that loan is paid back. There were a few years that the loan funds that were paid back seemed to kind of become inaccessible to us. And we couldn't figure out what had happened. And I think there were different changes in administration. And to make a long story short, part of the county's DLCD grant was to take a look at where those funds went and make them accessible again. They have been made available again and are being made through an organization called Dev Northwest. And they do have loans for weatherization for very low income. And we'll be posting that information on our website so that people can find out where to contact them. I know that there are some posters around town with the little tear-off website and phone number information, and we're happy to take calls if people want to get connected with them. I will stop talking and be happy to answer any questions.
All right, who might have a question? Allison, just an observation if I can. Even though I've seen a lot of this information before, I really appreciated it being compiled in one place so I could just keep going through. I guess that leads me to believe or ask, do developers or people interested or exploring Lincoln City for housing ever check with you on this kind of information or documentation of what we have, what we don't have?
Do you mean housing developers and builders, or do you mean people looking for housing?
No, big developers and builders, people that would want to add to the inventory.
We have had some conversations with market rate builders, and I think they definitely show an interest in wanting to make more units. It all comes down to what is able to be economically feasible for their business decisions. We've also had some conversations with property owners who don't really know how to start the process to develop property. They may have some acreage and they also run small businesses, and they see how hard it is for their staff to find housing, and they want to help make a difference. So I have in the last year or two had a few conversations with people who really want to help, but money is money, and trying to figure out how to develop property. There's a lot of money that goes into that front end with not necessarily a guarantee on the actual project making sense. So I think as we start to think about economic development assistance, I think the next iteration of housing will be how to connect property owners who are not developers with the resources to help make good decisions so that they can have revenue we can have housing and they can be successful with what they want to accomplish on their property.
I thought, for me, it's fabulous and interesting information, so I do appreciate it. And knowing it's all in one place, I'm sure it's in your file drawer or electronic folder, right?
Yes, but I agree. It was nice to have it listed, and we'll continue to use this as a something to update, and I do think it's good to have this every year.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions? Okay. Seeing none. Thank you, Allison and Anne Marie, hanging in there at whatever level.
A big level. She's being humble.
Okay. All right. Anything else for us, Allison? All right. Let's move on then. I took care of that big swath of the middle page on the agenda earlier. We do have an ordinance. If you'll go to J8, ordinance number 2020-12. Mr. Appicello.
Give me a second to get to page 147. So, Your Honor, Counsel, this is basically a 6-month extension for the Astound Broadband franchise. It's formerly known as COSTCOM. It is in the hands of outside counsel. They are close, but because the last extension expires tomorrow, I put together this ordinance and asked for an emergency so that it can be immediately effective to avoid any interruption in service. This is first reading of ordinance 2020-12, an ordinance of amending ordinance 2014-26, the Astound Broadband LLC COSTCOM telecommunications franchise by extending the existing franchise agreement by 6 months under the same terms and conditions to November 12, 2020, and declaring an emergency. Ask for approval of first reading.
Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Hoagland and a second from Ms. Hinton to approve the ordinance. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Take a roll call, please.
Dick Anderson?
Yes.
Judy Casper?
Yes.
Deanna Hinton?
Yes.
Riley Hoagland?
Yes.
Diane Coos?
Yes.
Rick Mark?
Yes.
And Mitch Parsons?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Your Honor, Counsel, this is second reading of ordinance number 2020-12, an ordinance amending ordinance 2014-26, the Astound Broadband LLC COSTCOM telecommunications franchise by extending the existing franchise agreement by 6 months under the same terms and conditions to November 12, 2020, and declaring an emergency. Ask for a motion to declare an emergency, and after that, ask for approval of second reading and adoption of the ordinance.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Mr. Hoagland.
Yes, sir. I'd like to make that motion, please.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Is there a second from Ms. Hinton again?
And that's for the emergency clause, right?
Well, was the motion for just the emergency or for emergency and approval of second reading and adoption? I think you could do one or two. It doesn't matter.
Oh, wait, let's just do the emergency first and then the approval.
Okay. So motion to declare an emergency and a second by Councilor Hinton.
Right. Any discussion? Roll call. Oh, yeah, Mr. Parsons.
What are we sidestepping by declaring an emergency? Is it a public process?
It's a 30-day effective date. The ordinance needs to be effective tomorrow. So that's all.
Ready?
Yep.
Casper?
Yes.
Hinton?
Yes.
Hoagland?
Yes.
Hughes?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Parsons?
Yes.
And Anderson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
So, Your Honor, I'd ask for a motion to approve second reading and adoption of the ordinance as an emergency enactment.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve by Mr. Counselor Mark. Is there a second?
Second.
And Hoagland, Mr. Hoagland, second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Hinton?
Yes.
Hoagland?
Yes.
Hughes?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Parsons?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
And Casper?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. We have a special order of business. We have the Economic Development Tools residential loans. Allison, see you back. Is Jody there?
Thank you. Yes, Jody's here, and she's going to present the residential loan agenda item.
Oh, there she is. All right.
Hi, sorry, I was just forgot to unmute myself for a second. So tonight we have an update, kind of piggybacking off of the housing update on the use of economic development tools in residential applications, and consider expanding the facade improvement and energy efficiency loan programs to include residential criteria. So Allison kind of already gave an update on some of the economic development tools that have been used, and two in particular that we wanted to discuss were the facade improvement and energy efficiency loan programs. So some of the options from the whole economic development toolbox that we wanted to pull out to mention that could be used for residential properties are, like I said, the energy efficiency and facade improvement loan programs. And then another option would be to offer a mixed use housing loan. And this would provide loans for second story residential remodel construction of existing commercial buildings, or a percentage of costs for second story construction of a new building. And this funding could be used for upgrades such as elevators, private access, or any other construction needed to convert a second story mixed use property. Another option would be to offer a workforce or missing middle housing loan. And this would provide loans for residential construction meeting the local workforce market, which here we've defined as those earning 60% to 120% of the median family income for Lincoln County. And those loan terms could be determined as payable upon certificate of occupancy, lease, or sale. And as they've been discussed previously, as the Economic Development Toolbox was adopted, this could be used in conjunction with other tools, such as pre-development assistance or infrastructure partners. However, I did want to mention this tool has not been developed yet, and so the criteria hasn't determined whether or not that could be used and if those pre-development assistance or infrastructure partners will be adopted as well. Two other tools that we'll discuss for the next agenda item are the pre-development assistance and infrastructure partner tools. And these two programs could be used for pre-development assistance and private redevelopment projects. Another option is to offer a brownfield assistance tool. So this would be for private commercial projects that would support the efforts of City Council, the agency, and community vision plans. In this case, the agency will partner with property owners to assist with brownfield site challenges to further sell or redevelop that property. And this is something that staff is working on now. We're completing an underutilized property survey within the city limits to identify where those key underutilized properties are, connect with property owners and determine what might be needed for those properties to redevelop, whether they're residential or commercial. So I won't talk about that one further, but the criteria for that tool will be coming in a few months as that survey is completed. So at this point, staff would like a discussion on the updated program criteria to include improvements for residential properties in the following programs would be the facade improvement loan program and the energy efficiency loan program. So how staff has proposed a criteria for residential applications with the criteria being that these residential properties are primary residences for the property owners. Another stipulation would be that the homes would be at market value at or below $252,000 for the housing needs assessment. Another requirement would be a 25% equity in the property. And finally, we would recommend less than 1,200 square feet home size. And as you can see in the agenda packet, the way that we've laid out this proposed criteria is just doing the track changes from the existing tool. So you can see what that new program would look like if you include the residential property criteria. So I'll turn it over to you if you have any questions about these two programs.
Okay. Jody, could you just clarify on the facade improvement? Now, as I'm reading the program goal, it's renovation and rehabilitation. So it's not new construction. It wouldn't be perceived as a construction loan?
Correct. This would be a facade improvement on an existing building.
So it would be an existing, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then could you share with us or let Allison, as you dump to her, the rationale of the sales price versus an income limit or some other index for these funds on the residential side?
Yes, so we've used the resident or the home market value previously because that's, I believe, what we use in the housing needs assessment rather than looking at the income level. But that's something that if you think that you would rather change that, then we could change the wording of the criteria.
I think part of the reason why we went with the home value is because it's easily findable on the county's website when you do a property tax search or property search. It's really based on the home that's being improved rather than on someone's personal income information that may be a little bit more sensitive or more difficult to track over time. And we felt like, you know, the $252,000, it's such a strange amount, 252, because that is basically the amount of home that a family of four can afford without becoming housing burdened. And I think that's at the 120% of median family income. So that's basically the upper limit for the housing needs assessment and home values for what would be considered affordable to workforce.
I noticed the item down below, it's not in red, so it isn't added, but I wonder if the up to 24 hours of free design consultation, should that be not residential or, so it's just a question. It looks like it would be open for either. residential or commercial? Do we care?
Well, the question is if you care. We thought that, not everybody takes advantage of this, although it is available. And sometimes people just need, something drawn up by a draftsperson, an architect, an engineer, and that costs money. So that was to try to help reduce the barrier for people to make the improvements if they didn't have money up front.
Thank you. Councilor Mark?
Yeah, thanks. I hope I'm getting some background noise in my house. I hope nobody else is here. Let me know if you hear that. Thanks, Allison. I like the point that the market value is easily obtainable through, you're talking about through the county assessment property records. I wonder if there could be language so people understand that that's where that number's coming from, because I some work I do, I have occasion look at that number, and it's often quite a bit different from, say, the Zillow number or what you might get from a market analysis, that sort of thing. And I think it's a good number to use, but I wonder if that ought to be stated in the criteria. And if it's not too complicated, somewhere explain that there is a tie-in to the median income number, because it makes more sense to me that way. And I don't know that it needs to be part of the motion, I'm just suggesting that when we're putting this language together, that could be in there. And I also, I just want to point out to people who might be watching this that, because I had to read, and I guess I've learned this by discussing this program in other meetings, that it's clear in your guidelines that this money is not restricted to facade improvements, but just that a facade improvement needs to be part of the allowable restoration work. That this money can go to many other things other than just facades, and I think that's a great part of the program.
Other questions? I don't see anybody. So I guess the question I have again is, knowingly, we're on the residential side. It seems like we're targeting on purpose. So that's the question. The workforce housing, which is defined as 60 to 120% of median, correct? So if that's our define in residential, should we knowingly allow a property to be utilize these funds to increase value up and beyond that 250,000 number? Because it may get the money. What you're saying is it gets the money going in, but it doesn't make the home available to that income group. So I'm not asking you to defend it, Allison. I'm wondering, council, thoughts on that. Yeah, Rick?
I don't feel that bothers me. I mean, if it's giving a homeowner a chance to improve a property that might be a property that's otherwise sitting blighted. In fact, I'm in Color City. It's such a mix of properties down here. There's some wonderful, fantastic houses down here, and there are some older, quite a few older houses that need work. And I think it would be, I'd like the idea of encouraging people at this income level to do what they can to those houses. And if it bumps the value of that house up beyond this limit, I mean, as long as they're meeting the requirement when they enter the program, the fact that it bumps the value of the house up
Well,
beyond that limit, I think that's a boon to the city and property taxes, and when we get paid back, and I'm not sure, I don't really have a problem with it myself, unless I'm missing something.
Rick, let me clarify for you, there is no income limit to borrow. So thinking someone is in that income limit area, you, who knows what you make, but you, Mr. Speculator, could buy this house at $240,000. Say you're going to live in it and live in it for a year, borrow at 0% interest up to $150,000, and then flip it for $400,000. So you didn't meet any income criteria to begin with. You used somebody else's money to improve it up and beyond. Where's the gain other than Cutler City gets a higher, and the city gets assessed value higher. But that guy could go to the bank and get his money. Why are we loaning to him? Just a point. Mr. Hoagland.
Thank you. Thanks. That good point. I don't think that maybe there could be a way in which if there is a sale within a year or something up and above the value of the house, but I'm agreeing with Rick that I think that I'm okay with them borrowing money that increases the value of their home. I mean, we can't control why people leave, and outside of it being, I'm only going to do this to create a windfall for me, there could be other extenuating circumstances that's just the way it is, and they didn't want to sell, versus I'm going to do this to take advantage of a 0% interest loan and increase my pocketbook by whatever. So, I guess that could be case by case, but I'm in favor of it being up and above the value of the home.
Well, okay. Let me help me. Aren't you taking business away from a traditional business, the banking lending institutions? They're going to, we're putting this through, as I understand it, the same kind of underwriting criteria. So they've got to qualify, and you've given it to them for 0 interest. So, where is, I guess I'm concerned about the net gain for the city.
Maybe we could have, I just don't. The net gain is that, like you said, we have an improved tax base. The things that get improved, the homes get improved. It looks better. Blights taken care of. There are gains there outside of a strictly monetary basis.
So why are we kidding ourselves with loan limits and stuff and income limits?
Because we do want to have limits.
Really? It doesn't look like it.
Well, there's some.
I don't know. I'd be, if I was a lending institution, I'd be right at your door.
Mayor, you bring up a good point. In essence, you're bringing up the entire policy basis of the loan program to begin with. We already don't provide income documentation for commercial buildings. And we have talked with our local bankers to make sure they're aware of our program and make sure that we're not stepping on their toes and that they understand this is something that they can offer to their clients if they so choose to do it. It does take longer, I think, to process one of our loans than it does for a conventional or commercial loan, just because we have meetings and timelines. We're faster than we used to be, though. And so, yes, you bring up some good questions. I'm wondering, we're happy to.
I'm sorry, my son keeps messing with me. I apologize.
Rick, let me get Rick.
I guess I'm wondering, could we put an income limit on the program? I think you have a good point, Mayor. But how many people with really good incomes are going to want to buy a 1,200 square foot house that needs a lot of work and live in it for a year just so they can fix it up? I guess that could happen, but I just don't know how big a problem that is.
I just putting it out there for you. Any Did anybody else have any kind of questions? If not, oh, Diane. Yes.
So it says that it must be your primary home, but it doesn't give a timeline. So if I purchase the home, I have to be in it for 2 years before I can sell it. You know, I think there are loans like that now. Is that something that's a possibility?
Yeah, the loans are all payable on refinance or sale of a property.
Right, but I mean, if we give them the loan and we say, okay, here's the loan, but you have to live in your this is your primary residence for 1 year. I mean, is that, I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, if we're worried about people just flipping houses, you know.
Yeah, or for the term of the loan. I mean, we can put whatever criteria you want in the program. And Councilor Mark, you're correct. We don't know how many people are out there who would want to take advantage of this. In, I think, all cases of the loans that we have provided through the Urban Renewal Agency, credit has checked out just fine. We haven't had any defaults, and so I don't really know who, we just don't know what the demand is going to be for this type of program.
Okay. But, well, why don't we move to energy efficient program? And again, this talks about existing commercial and I would assume existing residential.
That is correct. Yeah, the program has been used before strictly for commercial buildings, and we are now looking at what would the criteria look like if we want to allow this for existing residential.
And again, you put in the same kind of $250,000.
That is, yeah, correct. It's the same criteria as the facade improvement residential program.
I can't help but wonder why. You know, if we are doing energy efficient, trying to, you know, have buildings more efficient, why? What do we care what it goes into then? Just out of curiosity.
For the criteria with the home value, is that what you're confused about?
I'm kind of curious. You know, add to the same thought that I've run through. You know, the reason we're doing it is to make a loan available so somebody can swap out an old furnace or install gas lines, you know, type of thing, which cuts down utility costs, I would assume. So it sounds like, you know, if I'm the flipper, I'm going to come for both of these loans, right? Use $150,000 and flip it and have nice energy efficient utilities. So I just, somehow I'm just not getting the, I hear the words, I don't see the criteria focusing in on the end product or end borrower or end homeowner that we want. You know, it's, if I can, the criticism of, say, Habitat for Humanity is it's a one-time gift, and you know, people could sell the house tomorrow versus the land trust where the land stays with and there's, you know, saving the down payment, the investment for a long-term housing effort within that price range. And I guess I'm just trying to somehow think that same way, is how is this preserving for past one owner, and it's not, you know, which is fine. You know, I'll get off that soap and just not worry about it being really workforce housing, other than, you know, when you come in the door to borrow.
Well, I think what it's doing is getting at an improvement to a home that is in the value range for workforce.
Yeah.
We're all aware that our housing stock is harder to maintain on the coast, and a lot of our housing is older in terms of construction era. And not everybody has had time or interest or money to keep up with deferred maintenance. And so this is just one other tool to help make improvements to our housing inventory. We're definitely open to hearing your thoughts and circling back again with more information, or whatever you would like if you do want to pursue facade improvement and energy efficiency for residential.
Well, I do like the energy efficient, because the likelihood of it staying in the house and staying with the existing owners and that price range. So this one, it fits a lot more for what you talked about than the facade anyway. Just out of curiosity, you know, in your previous agenda topic, you talked about the Dev Northwest weatherization loans.
Yes.
Does that have an interest rate on it? You know?
I think it does. Jody, do you happen to remember what their interest rate is? No.
Okay.
I think it was like 2 3/4 or something around 3-ish. But yes, and that was to cover service fees.
And that kind of shows up to 35,000 and it does a lot of the same kind of stuff that I'm hearing us.
Yes, it's also, I think they are serving 60% of median family income and below. And they're going for, you know, weatherization and habitability types of things, which we could also include in our program. I think where we run into hurdles with offering assistance is really to the missing middle housing. There are lots of programs like Dev Northwest for low income, lower income, but nothing really for moderate income or workforce. So we try not to compete with the other agencies that offer programs for different income levels, because we want to send people or refer people over to other programs. We don't want to duplicate other programs. And so trying to figure out how to fit that niche of where there is not assistance and where the city can help make improvements for housing is
by the way, those 80% is their marketing anyway. 80% median income and below. Mr. Hoagland.
Oh, hi. So I was wondering if there could be something like you could only get this, you know, like Allison was saying, like while you're living there, or also you may only have one at a time, or one within a certain amount of time. If there was a like for that, and then the assessed value versus the tax value, was that looked at all? You know, it says of the total market value versus the assessed value. So I know those two numbers are not always the same.
I would assume, Allison and Jody, you're probably using the market value on the assessors, because they usually have both, and I would assume they would use the market value. And yeah, that probably doesn't, that's higher than the assessed value.
Right.
Yes, that's what we were trying to do, was go with the market value.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, one at a time, you mentioned one at a time, or, you know, this is really if somebody comes up with having a second home, they would not qualify. This is primary home, one home, and you're right, Councilor Coos. You know, we don't have anything built in where if somebody were to have one home and take advantage of the program and then decided to relocate but rent in another city, that's not something that we have, you know, in here is able to figure out or accommodate or say you have to pay it back if you don't live here as a primary residence any longer. I don't know how to do all that, but we can talk with some experts and try to get some answers.
Councilor Mark.
Yeah, as far as the energy improvement program, I think encouraging sustainable living is something that we ought to be doing. And again, we all benefit. You know, there's been quite a few. There is renovation work in Color City all over the place, not some of the older places. And I think there's kind of a domino effect, at least anecdotally. You know, somebody in the neighborhood fixes up a house, you see the neighboring houses following suit. And I think encouraging this is great.
Yep.
I do note, you know, if you have a 25% equity in a home valued at $252,000, that means you've got $63,000 worth of equity in that house. That's not peanuts. So, you know, if we would think about putting an income limit on this, I think we would narrow the pool so much it would almost be worthless. I mean, in order to have that much equity in the house, you have to have some income. So, and it is limited to primary residence. Although, you know, I notice language in the facade improvement program. I don't know, maybe this is in the energy one also, that multiple facade improvement loans for multiple properties having the same owner are available. Well, that sort of conflicts with the primary residence requirement. How's that work?
Yes, so that criteria is primarily for commercial property owners that are using that loan. And if you wanted to, we could add in language to just stress that wouldn't apply for residential properties.
Yeah. Good catch. I'm assuming you're not making 100% loans, or would you suck up the whole equity position?
I don't know. I would look to our loan officer to find that information and present it in the loan review. And then, you know, I just, we'd have to have enough to cover it. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, usually I think with our commercial loans, I think the properties are valued greater than the loan. But I don't know in the case of residential. So
is that enough discussion areas of concern raised? Is there something you'd like pinned down, Jody, to give more clarity?
No, this was helpful. I mean, it's up to you really if there's something that's really jarring to any of you that you're concerned about, but I think we can work on this and bring back a revised version of this.
Okay. All right. Is everybody all right with that? Okay. All right. Let's go to your other one then, economic development tools. This is what we pushed you from the last council meeting, right, to go through?
Correct, yes.
You got us wearing hats in that other agency, though, so you had some benefit of earlier discussion?
Correct, yeah. So this agenda item is for 2 additional city economic development tools. As you mentioned, these were presented to the Urban Renewal Agency on April 27th, and they were approved there, although this was pushed back from City Council. So it'll be nice to go through these now. So just as a little bit of background on these two tools for the pre-development assistance and infrastructure partners tools. The criteria for these really came out of the joint work session that was held on March 30th of this year between the Urban Renewal Agency and City Council, where we asked some big questions to kind of go through the criteria for new economic development tools. So the program goal for the pre-development assistance program is to provide for system development charges and permit fees prepaid by URA, or in this case would be City Council, to be repaid prior to certificate of occupancy or at time of sale or portion of sale. For public-private partnership projects, fees for site preparation could also include tree survey, geotechnical or soil studies, wetland delineation, environmental study, and preliminary design or engineering as part of a development agreement. And the second tool that we wanted to bring to you as well was the Infrastructure Partners tool. And the program goal for this tool is for private redevelopment projects that support the efforts of the agency and community vision plans. The agency will partner to construct necessary and required public works infrastructure, such as water, sewer, and storm mainline extensions. It can also include sidewalks, off-street parking, curbs, and gutters. This can also include telecommunications assistance, such as access to high-speed broadband, foster job creation, and economic development objectives. And so at this time, we would appreciate a discussion about these program criteria for the pre-development assistance and infrastructure partners programs.
Jody, could we cheat, and could you share with us what the suggestions we made wearing a different hat at the last agency meeting on that would be helpful as a little memory.
Yes. For the infrastructure partners tool, there wasn't any concerns for this tool, so that I have a check mark on my notes. So the agency had adopted that program as staff had proposed that criteria. And then there was more discussion about the pre-development assistance program. And the suggestion there was to have repayment at occupancy and remove the loan repayment at point of sale. I forget how it's worded exactly, but it was, rather than having it repaid on sale, would just do repayment at occupancy.
So yeah, when the planning department gives them their final occupancy permit, yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So I hate flipping back and forth, but why did we decide that wasn't worthwhile on the infrastructure? Because we're talking about sewer or water, sewer. So this is for private redevelopment. So we'd assume they're getting a bigger loan to develop a property. So I would envision the infrastructure partnering was so it is a loan. Okay, I'm okay. Yeah, because we wouldn't do it unless it was a worthwhile project that brought a lot of something to the community, to the urban renewal area or the city, right? And we're talking maybe like telecom, extending sewer, some of these things. Is that what?
Correct. These would be big projects that would really hopefully bring development to surrounding areas as well. And so the application would how the process works, it goes through our outside loan officer to work through whether or not it makes sense that way. But then we would still bring it through the loan and grant committee and then bring it back to either the urban renewal agency or city council. So you'll be able to look at the project and kind of assess, is that going to meet this program goal?
Would that have the same loan amounts? Was there loan amounts on this that I missed? Or would that just be negotiated?
The way we have the program criteria proposed is just putting a maximum amount loaned, but there isn't specified amounts for commercial versus residential.
Okay. So, but we do have 150,000 is what we're, okay.
Correct.
Right. Rick, you get your question answered?
Yeah, I wasn't looking, I hadn't read real closely the specific language on the program. And I was just noticing that whereas those other two tools that we discussed had very specific criteria, and the pre-development assistance specifically talks about, URA would, the Urban Renewal Agency would prepay the permit fees. So we know what that means, but on the language under the infrastructure partners, it doesn't really spell out.
Well, if you look down, it's got the construction of water, sewer, and storm main extension. So say a big, development, residential or commercial, needing to extend utilities to the site. Sidewalks, off-street parking, telecommunication assistance.
But where does it say that it's a loan or to be repaid?
Middle of the page under financing, the second paragraph down, funds made available short-term, not to exceed 10 years. This program makes it fine. Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's right. Yeah, I missed the 150. So, any other questions, concerns? All this is subject to budget anyway, right? They have to have money in the pot to come borrow. Okay.
Yeah, so we're not asking for funding specifically for these programs right now. We really just want to set up the base of a program to be used in the future.
Yep, great. Okay. I guess a lack of enthusiasm might be the 9 o'clock hour.
Are we looking for a motion now?
No,
just
okay. Discussion, right? Just discussion.
We're not opposed to any action if you are so inclined.
We'd rather have you come back. When you do urban renewal, you could just stay longer.
Well, remember the Urban Renewal Agency has already created these two tools, so we were actually looking to you to let us know how to modify any criteria on these two tools, the infrastructure partners and the pre-development assistance.
Okay.
And we would love it if you want to move those forward. And if you have more questions or need more information, we're happy to bring that back.
Looks like Deanna's getting ready. Deanna?
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready to get something done here. How about I move to approve the pre-development assistance program and infrastructure partners program and authorize staff to make any minor administrative edits.
I'll second that.
Could so we've got a motion with a second from Councilor Mark. Deanna, are you including in your pre-development the pieces we've taken out or we at the agency Urban Renewal took out was
right, it should mirror what Urban Renewal.
Okay.
Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, because we exited that time of sale and stuff. Are you, Allison, you got that, and Jody? Okay. So there's a motion to approve, mimicking what was approved for the urban renewal agency on both the infrastructure and the pre-development assistance loans. Any further discussion? And no money involved, so all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed with a nay? Hearing none? There you go.
Yahoo!
Taken away. Okay. Thank you, Jody and Allison. Okay. We have COVID-19 discussion. This is the draft lodging reopening plan and economic aid report. And Ron, you're making clarifying. This is a draft, and you're just gathering input. Is that not correct? To bring back to the larger body?
Yes. So we're meeting tonight. Newport's meeting tonight. I have been working with the other city managers on a draft program for opening the lodging industries for when that would happen. And you have scheduled on Thursday a joint meeting with the county and the other cities to talk about this very document. And so tonight is to get any input from you, which I will forward on to the county, and also, as we heard, to get input from your constituents as to what they felt about it. And I don't know if you want me to go through this in detail or just hit a couple of highlights.
Why don't you hit some highlights? Because we've certainly read it and had a lot of input from our constituents.
Okay. In the preparation of this, so there was Newport City Manager, Yachat City Manager, me, and Wayne Belmont, the County Council. And we actually used a few hotels and BRDs, management companies, to help us in drafting this and looking at it. And the only two things that I have heard, if you go to page 174, the only two things that I have really heard on this that are of consideration was the one that you heard tonight of the 6-person limit on the occupancy. Just as a reminder, in our ordinances, we limit the number of occupants in 2 ways. One is that we have a limitation on the number of bedrooms. There cannot be more than 5 bedrooms. You cannot have more than 3 per bedroom with plus 1 person and a limit of 16 occupants. So in other words, 2 bedrooms, that's 5 people, 3 bedrooms, that's 10, and so forth, with a limitation on of a total of 16. So, but this document, no matter what our own provisions would say, would limit this to a total of 6 persons per VRD, no matter how many bedrooms they had. All of the provisions of this were drafted in cooperation with the County Health Department. I don't have all of the reasons as to why they felt that way, but that was the biggest complaint that I had heard. The other concern, and I only received this from one individual, was about the hot tubs and the fact that those have to remain closed. And I heard that from just one hot tub. I had sent that, I believe you guys had received copies of that as well. This is scheduled to coincide with the end of the document order number 32385, which was re-upped until June 30 or May 30th first. And so this would set to begin on June 1st, 2020. I guess the other thing that I probably heard quite a bit about is how do you enforce it? The answer is pretty much the way we enforce every VRD or hotel issue that we've had or have been. It's both by observation and by complaint. And our police have been doing both. They have been dealing with this in both, again, the observation of their own and by complaint, and they've been acting on those. You heard one of the complaints tonight about they didn't like the way that our police acted on one of the issues. So, do you want me to go into any more detail, or is that sufficient, Mayor?
I'm assuming that counselors have either read through this and either have some questions or suggestions. And I'm trying to think what would be the best way for you. Are you trying to compile some stuff and take back?
Yeah, in our discussion, again, it's in our discussion when we had discussed the fact that both Newport and us were meeting today. This is a draft copy. Any information that we get from tonight, both in the way of questions that we might need to answer or in changes, I would forward those on to the county who has prepared this document.
Okay. So are there questions? Councilor Mark.
I'm just noticing one other little element that I did see an email on, and I was a little, the person who wrote the email was very concerned about this, and it's not something I'm familiar with, but it's the line at the bottom of page 174. All unused linen and terry are removed and exchanged. And this person had great concern about, I think the assumption was that that would have to be rewashed. And I mean, this really is getting down to the nitty gritty here, but they said that would greatly expand the amount of work needed, and they were wondering why. And that's another, and maybe again, comes from some county health recommendation, which I understand. Maybe I can take this opportunity, if you don't mind, just to sort of I'm going to take a wild guess that everyone who's on this meeting right now would love to open every business in full if we knew it was safe. And all those concerns that we heard are very painful. And we worry greatly about the businesses. I remarked to somebody else today, knowing that we were coming into this meeting, that I've never been asked to make such an important decision based on such a lack of information. And as I weigh the pros and cons and read the emails from people who are desperate to go back to work versus the people who are desperate to keep infected people out of our county because they're concerned about their safety, how do I make a decision on this? And what I keep coming back to in my mind is that I'm no doctor, I'm no epidemiologist or a virologist. I have no choice except to listen to what the state and the county health officials are telling me. And I'm going to follow their guidance. And I don't know what else I could do. So that's not going to satisfy many of the business owners, and I'm sorry about that. But we're talking about May 15th, opening up retail business, I believe, and restaurants, and 3 weeks from now, opening up lodging on this limited basis. And we're doing this with the hope that people are going to come down to the beach from the valley and that they're going to follow the guidelines and the social distancing and all that. We have our fingers crossed that's going to happen. And I was concerned when those folks complained about what was going on at Safeway, because what they saw at Safeway, if they're upset at people not paying attention to the rules, That's what has us concerned with every business. So it's going to be really important that people who run those businesses, when they do open up, that they follow the rules and the masks and the distancing and the tape and all that's required. Thanks. I'm glad I had an opportunity to get that out because it's been on my mind.
Yeah.
But that's kind of really all I have.
Okay. Riley, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you. So, likewise, as Rick said, making a very important decision based on, limited, and I'm no virologist or any of that stuff as well. Some of the things that I question and would like to see is if we're going to make a particular subset of employees wear masks, I think it would be important to have a city requirement to wear masks. I don't feel that this particular industry has any greater influence on the impact of transmitting disease than any of the other industries that are not required to wear masks. I understand the parts of this. I think asking people, I feel like we're asking very specifically of the short-term rental market to do things that no other industry is required to do, and I don't feel that that's setting a good example and making things kind of convoluted and kind of iffy. I know we had heard a lot of emails this afternoon about this industry. I think we had another one, Ron, about I think it was a VRD owner talking about the pools. I'm sorry, the hot tubs. We had the one guy who worked on them talking about the mold. And I think the other guy was talking about that if you turn them off, then they tend to rust out and that. So there was two people that were not in favor of the restrictions on the spas that hot tubs. And I would be in favor of opening that up. I don't feel like limiting the number of, and I think he also talked about the number, 6 over 16 or anything like that. I understand big picture, you're trying to limit the number of people here, but also I feel like it's simply going to be too much, and that having a house limitation, I don't feel is going to, be very accurate, being able to very enforce, and I think it's just going to be, we already have issues with it, and I would have loved to see, for that to be a thing, but I don't feel that that's going to be. There's some other parts of this, but I know Deanna's got something to say, and let me collect my next set of thoughts.
All right, Deanna.
Okay, I have a number of things to say. First of all, I think basing our decisions for the county, including us, on just that narrow strip of counties isn't sufficient. I think we need to base our openings on the counties where we draw visitors from. And so far, my short list, and Ron sent you my list of ideas here. The short list is from Clackamas County, Marion County, Multnomah County, Washington County, and Clark County in Washington. And none of them have flattened out yet. Their cases are still growing. And so anyway, I just want to put that out there because I think tying us to our next door neighbor county is not appropriate, because we're going to be drawing people from other counties that have more cases, and I think it's important that we consider that. I didn't look too much at King County, but they have a pretty high number, as everybody knows, and then Idaho and some other places where we get people from. But anyway, that's something I think we need to think about. And then as far as the draft goes on for phase 1 for short-term rentals, including all of them. I suggest that we have a spacing of like 4 or 5 days between when they visit, when they have their next visitor. So someone checks out on one day, and then there's 4 or 5 days for the cleaning people to come in, give it space. If they miss, if someone was there that was carrying the virus, it would give enough time for it to actually die. And it would be helpful. And I heard that from one of the people who work work for a VRD in cleaning, that she said that would be an appropriate thing. I don't know what her number was now, but I think the number that I've heard for the virus to live on surfaces is 72 hours. And you have to give the workers enough time to have some space before they go into the home. So I think that's important. And also on the first page of the draft, on the 6th bullet and the sub bullet under service charges, sorry, it's a little dark in here. There's a reference to a questionnaire, and I don't know what questionnaire that refers to. So that's a question. And then, although I agree that employers should take the temperatures of their employees at the start of each day, there needs to be some kind of accompanied language or something given to the employee to let them know that not all cases, not everyone who has the virus has a temperature, and some are even, they don't have any symptoms at all. So the temperature thing is kind of a false identification, and that really worries me because I think we need to really take care of these folks. And the next item is that I think that the businesses, the owners or managers, have to provide the masks for the employees. And that, and also that these records, are they keeping records of their everyday, their questionnaire, of their temperature of the employee? Is the employee sign off on that record? I mean, how is this being tracked? If we're putting some mechanisms in there to keep track of these things, then what's the enforcement, and then how are they tracking it? And page 2 of the handout, under restrictions for VRDs, pools, spas, and other recreation. And I'm not sure why we need to include that, because I got an excellent email from one fellow that hasn't been mentioned yet, and I thought that he sent it to everybody. But he does such a thorough cleaning, even he went into all the chemicals, and now he's following the CDC cleaning, and he uses an additional step in cleaning them. And he said that they have to run constantly. They can't be turned off. I think somebody mentioned that they corrode, and there's some other issues. Anyway, I don't know why we would want to close their hot tubs, although they're kind of noisy sometimes, but that's another story. And then on page 3 of the handout, the bottom bolded statements that separate out and make a new I think it should be separated out and make a new paragraph with a sentence that it says failure to adhere. So this would be the enforcement part of it, which is kind of weak. Failure to adhere, and name this section but name it something a little bit stronger or something. And in addition, spell out under what state and local law this is referring to and what the consequences are for breaking that law. And I have more. Phase 1 in general, masks and face coverings. I think it was Riley who mentioned that we should make them mandatory for all the businesses. I think the city ought to make it mandatory. I'm ready to make a motion that we require during this time that we require everyone to wear a face mask. Those people who own businesses, their employees, and people who walk into the businesses. And if they walk in and they don't have a mask, then this is where Ed comes in. Ed, are you listening? So we,
Yes, I'm here.
okay, thank you. So this is what could be fun while we're going through this crazy time, is that maybe we could request Ed to make some masks with our octopus logo on them and hand them out to all the businesses, a whole bunch of them. So when their patrons come in to buy something, a sandwich or a doodad, and they don't have a mask on, then the owner of the business or the employee could hand them an octopus mask, and it would be good for us, it would be good for the businesses, and it would be really good to control the virus, and it would be fun. So that's what I suggest about masks. They make it mandatory everywhere, and that even in the grocery store, it's a scary thing to have to go to the grocery store these days. But if we had some octopus masks, that would really be fun. Okay. So I don't know what you think about that, Ed, but there you go. Okay. And I'm not sure how, this, the prerequisite for phase 1 opening includes declining COVID-19 prevalence. Lincoln County has been at 6 cases for days now, but I'm not sure that you would call this declining, but it is stabilized. So I'm just wondering if, it's hard to follow that language is what I'm saying, because it doesn't always apply directly to us. I wouldn't know how we would show that it's going down when there's 6. But anyway, just a question. And then, I saw that the state parks remain closed along the coast, so that was one other comment I had. And then enforcement, I hope you hear that in all capital letters. I understand that the police has been doing what they can do for measures that orders that are already in existence, but I think we have to do better. There are so many cars that don't belong here. I mean, they don't live here. There's so many people that aren't following the existing orders, so I don't know how we're going to take care of the rest of this. And so that kind of wraps it up for me, for my comments for this, except for one more. I asked to be on this committee because I wanted to talk about tying it to something different than just the neighboring county, but I wasn't put on.
So, Mr. Hoagland, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. It is still valid. Thank you for asking. I feel part of it said that, so again, yes, if we're going to do masks, it should be everybody, everywhere, any business, employees or customers. I don't think a mask on the beach is necessarily needed, but a mask at the store is needed. It says you must provide masks if you're going to provide masks to employees. But also some of these cleaning, some of the VRD companies have independent contractors. And so I would like them also to be included so they don't have to buy that themselves. I'm not sure how I feel about that if they're independent or employees. It says bed and breakfasts can't do the communal food, but how is that any different from grocery stores? The hot food at grocery stores that we have at Safeway and all of our grocery stores all serve communal food. So are we requiring them to shut down? No. And then it says paper products laminated. I don't fully understand what that is. I don't know what that means. Paper products laminated or replaced. So is that occupational tax permits that are pinned on a corkboard by the front door? Not quite sure what that means. I mean, I get taking all the old toilet paper, sure, but I don't know what you would laminate. And then requiring the RV parks to make them have a 3-night stay. I don't know if I'm in favor of that. Like I'm assuming it's for tracking purposes or something. I'm not sure. Actually, I don't know why you would make that a 3-night minimum of stay. I'm not in favor of that. Where you could stay at a hotel for 1 day. I don't see the difference in that. And those are my questions. Those are my statements.
All right. You'll have to wait, Deanna.
Okay.
Mr. Mark.
Yeah, one element that I don't see on here that did pop up on a lot of the emails, and I've heard was the plan in some of the hotels, was a time period required after a room is used and I guess cleaned, and that it can't be used again for X number of hours, 48, 72 hours. The idea, I guess, is to, and we got some really heartfelt emails from housekeepers, and I think one from a housekeeping management company concerned about the safety of the housekeepers. And I guess that spoke to that. So I don't know, but maybe if that's not a health official guideline, then we don't worry about it. But that was a question I had.
Yeah, Deanna suggested that quiet time in between stays.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I was going to say too that one thing I didn't say is that the issue with the towels, I got a heartfelt, maybe all of you guys did too, about how much money it takes and time and to wash all the linens, even if they aren't used. If we have that space of time, 4 to 5 days between when a guest leaves and another guest comes, that would give the towels enough time to, if they had a virus on them, for the virus to dissipate, because I'm pretty sure the CDC says 72 hours at least. So that would take care of the washing of the towels. I wouldn't think we would want to have them have to wash the towels if they haven't been used, if we do provide time between guests.
Maybe towels could be bagged or something.
Maybe they could.
And I'm assuming you don't distinguish between a motel or a VRD on that issue, Deanna.
No, I don't.
Okay, just for clarification. Anybody else, suggestions, things they saw, questions?
I think, you know, yeah, oh wait, never mind.
No, you're all right. You're up.
That's okay.
Okay. But Diane, you quiet, Midge?
For me, it's everybody's pretty much talked about, you know, everything that I think we're all thinking it's a very hard thing to do. What's right, what's wrong. I do question the, you know, 2-person or the limit to 6 on VRDs, because those families, they're coming together. They're going to drive down together. There was some very good letters that we received on that made more sense, along with the hot tubs and the quiet time. And so everybody's kind of picked everything on, so that's why I'll let someone else go.
Now, Mr. Apicella, you don't get an opinion unless you have a legal something here. That's
what I do. What I think I would suggest is that you ask the county if they have some competent, substantial evidence to support the numbers. We had some allegations that the 6 was arbitrary and capricious, and I heard Deanna talk about the same with the 3 for the RVs, so 3 nights. So I would just in general ask if they could substantiate why they chose those numbers. They may have very good explanations, but without them sharing the reason why, you get allegations it's arbitrary.
Okay. Good point. Thank you. Ron, I noticed that, not that it's a big deal, but on page 1 of the folder under hotels, room service is mentioned, you know, grab and go, sealed items, room service. So that leads me to believe there must be room service, but over on page 2, it says room service is not allowed. So there seemed to be a little inconsistency there. I had a question on, again, page 1 under motels, alternative check-in, curbside. I'm not sure how curbside, is a safeguard. What are the safeguards? It's not like you're, what do we got here? You already got touch-free check-in, remote check-in, and minimum stay, that was it. On page 2, under, again, hotels and motels, the pools, spas, gyms, because we've got Salishan in the area, you may want to say a zip line course or, that rope ladder, whatever it's called, platform. I agreed with Deanna on the hot tubs. I could see community swimming pools closed at a motel, but a hot tub at a house where, heck, you traveled there, you might as well sit in a hot tub together. And I think our ordinance requires cleaning, doesn't it, after every stay, as I recalled in our VRD ordinance anyway? So
I think so.
Yeah, Mitch, hey, yeah, that hand is up.
Just want to throw in my 2 cents. I'm agreeing with pretty much everything that you all are saying. The only question I have is a couple of us have brought up the idea of having downtime in between. I personally don't see a need for that if the masks and the cleaners work like they say they do.
I would think, though, that the argument might be, to Deanna's point of all that stuff in a room, if they somehow were forcing them to have to, wash everything. So I don't know the answer to that, but that might be a nice trade-off.
To that, it just depends on the surface. Cardboard's 24 hours and steel is up to 7 days according to the CDC.
Okay. All right. Oh, that was me. Okay. So, Ron, is that enough for you to?
Yes, I'll put my notes together, make sure I got it correct, and then send these off to the county tomorrow, along with anything else that we may have received tonight. Okay. Now, Mayor, this is entirely up to you and the council. We are prepared to discuss our own opening plan as far as the government facilities that we operate. If you would like to tonight, if the time is being limited, I'll email this information to you, and then we can talk about it at a later time.
Well, I think, it's not very long, is it? Are we?
Well, that entirely depends on Ken, because I'm going to kind of turn it over to him and let him take this. I can tell you this, it's a very changing document. We had it all put together, and then on May 7th, we got changes from the state. So we put it together on May 8th, and then we got more changes from the state. So I'm going to get out of the way and let Ken talk a little bit.
Thank you. And the reason I think we ought to do it is certainly the public is looking for information, and by capturing it here on the video, we can at least refer people to the end of the meeting. Besides, you guys are all at home, comfy. All right, Ken.
Hey, good evening. So you got copies of this. It's just a couple pages. And
did we?
We did.
We didn't get it.
Okay.
Unless late in the day or something.
I'll have to check with Ron.
Was that your email at 3:30 today?
It might be.
Oh.
But let me just kind of highlight it. It's not that complicated, and I've kept it uncomplicated because it keeps changing. So phase one for the city, what I've recommended to Ron and to the council here right now, and I'll make sure if you didn't get a copy, you get this right away, that we really kind of stay in the same status that we're in right now. Primary reason is things are, I think, working pretty well. When you consider each one of our departments, Public Works, Parks and Rec, City Administration, Finance, Planning, Legal, Human Resources. My second point is if things go badly in phase one of the governor's plan, we will not have to undo everything and move back out of the buildings and our facilities. So I believe that we can continue to do the work that we're doing, hold the meetings that we're holding. The only two exceptions that I put in the plan is we've asked the library and the Parks and Rec to develop a partial plan based upon phase one of the governor's plan, which does allow some Parks and Rec type activities, and the library would be not necessarily open, but have a few more services available to the public. And fine-tune a disinfection strategy for City Hall, the library, and the community center, and start building our stockage of masks, face shields, gloves, and that kind of thing. One thing that I've noticed, we spend a lot of time, as we should, taking care of our first responders and our healthcare individuals. But when we start talking about all these other openings to include government, we don't necessarily have any stockage of a lot of this stuff because we've not been the priority. So I think that's something that we need to work on. So phase one is really keeping things, with the exception of some small items in the library and Parks and Rec, just the way they are right now. Phase two is somewhat limited on what the governor has put out. I'm pretty sure her staff is still developing how that's all going to work. But we would bring back in a few people here to City Hall, primarily administrative and administration type people, open up the municipal court, and open up a little bit more of the library. And we would, before that phase starts, we would have the building marked off with social distancing, signage, and I've also, you'll see in the plan, that we would have to have monitors on each one of our floors to make sure that people are paying attention and minding the requirements for mask and social distancing. And we built some sneeze guards. They're not expensive, didn't have a whole lot of money, but we built sneeze guards for our counters where the customers come to, and we will use those. We will still require our city departments to hold meetings by Zoom instead of gathering together as a group in a conference room or something to that effect, and keep still a majority of some of the folks working remotely. So kind of a soft opening, but really kind of getting some of the administration and back in to get things ramped up. I've kept the numbers low in looking at this in case something goes wrong in phase two and we peak up on cases of COVID, and it would be minimal amount of people returning back home for that. And then phase 3, pretty much back to normal operations, but a continued disinfection strategy and continuing to wear masks, face shields, sneeze guards in place. In fact, we'll probably have sneeze guards forever now in our facilities. So that's the highlight. I'll get this out to you right away so you can take a look at it. It's just not that complicated. And I will tell you, the minute the governor changes her plans, these are going to have to adjust too. So, questions or concerns right off the top?
Well, Ken, Councilor Mark indicated that it was sent out to us at 3:30. So
okay,
we should, except for Kathy, probably needs a copy for the record.
I will get it.
And so check your mailboxes. But yeah, probably by the time we read it or print it out, you'll be changing it. So
yeah, you know, and like I said, you know, the governor's plans are, you know, their phase 1 is a little bit flushed out, but phase 2 and 3, I think, are lacking a lot of substance and detail before we can, that I would recommend to Ron or the council before we actually spend any money and move people around. And I really do think that what we have going right now is working pretty good. It's not perfect, but I think people have become accustomed to it. They've learned a lot of the different efficiencies, and we're, for the most part, being able to do a lot of things virtually and remotely for our customers and our citizens. So I think we're okay. A reminder, each one of these periods under the current plan requires a 21-day period before we even attempt to move to the next phase.
Okay. Deanna, you have a question?
Well, it wasn't for Ken. It was for Ron, so I'll wait till we're...
All right.
Okay.
Does anybody have a question for Ken? Okay. Oh, Diane, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so just to clarify, when we're talking about phase 1, this starts on May 15th?
No. This starts when Lincoln County gets approved by the governor.
Oh, that was my question too.
Yeah.
So when will that happen?
I have absolutely no idea, Counselor.
I mean, because they're looking at May 15th to open restaurants and everything. So
best case scenario, best case scenario, you got 4 aces in your hand. It'll start this Friday.
Okay, so that's my other question. How do we get that out? If we get approved and it's open May 15th, will there be an announcement to all the businesses and to us so we know? Is it how are we going to get that information out?
I don't know what the county's plan is. When we meet with Wayne Belmont here in the next day or two, we can ask. And we also have a chance to discuss that with the Board of County Commissioners on Thursday when you have your combination meeting with the other cities and the Board of County Commissioners. I would like to think in this particular case, this will be one of the quickest press releases the county's ever done if they get approved to open.
Okay.
So yet to be seen. The county, I listened to the Board of County Commissioners meeting today, and they were going to try and get their request letter done today and off to the state no later than tomorrow morning.
But again, the caveat is we don't know how long it takes the state to look at 36 county requests.
Yeah, I agree. And they already have, there were counties that had submitted their request over a week ago.
Yeah. So we're in the middle of the band, not at the front. Yeah.
Right.
Anybody else? All right. Thank you, Ken.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Appicello, do you have anything?
I do have something, but I'll share with you in an email. So
okay. And Ron, do you have any other?
I do have one more thing, and it is COVID-19 related. So we received almost 500 applications for the purchasing agreements that for the $635,000. We've been sorting those through today and putting one pile of lodging versus one pile of non-lodging. And tomorrow we'll start sitting around our virtual table and working through this. Technically, by our ordinances, it's probably going to take us the rest of the week to finish this processing. Technically, under our ordinance, Ed and I both have the authority, the purchasing authority to sign the contracts that are associated with the purchase of these items. However, collectively, it's a $635,000 purchase. I would like to ask of you that if prior to the budget meeting, we bring the list of to you, so to have a special council meeting for your approval and sign off on them.
I like that. That makes good sense. So just a list and what category?
Yeah, it would be two lists, one for lodging, one for non-lodging, the applicant and how much they would receive.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mayor.
So that'd be before, a little earlier than the 5 o'clock budget meeting next Monday.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Do you, off the top of your head, Ron, do you have did anybody get the information on the Thursday meeting?
If I recall, I think it's at 3 p.m.
Okay. I assume Zoom or call in or something?
I believe it's a conference call. I don't think it's a Zoom call. They'll be doing the same thing where they're going to try to have all of the city councilors there so that you can each independently take a vote on this.
Okay. I haven't seen anything, but I'll look again.
Okay.
All right. We are down to any actions from executive session.
Mr. Mayor?
Judy?
Yeah, I'd like to direct staff to explore land exchange as was discussed in the executive session.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion from Judy and a second by Deanna to ask staff to explore land exchange and just a land exchange.
And options associated with it?
Or I guess, are you looking at acquisition at negotiating maybe a price and land exchange being one of the payment processes, or just simply land?
I think we were talking about land exchange. We were talking about land exchange and possible options.
Okay. Mr. Appicello?
Yeah, just in any land exchange, the statute requires that the exchange be for equal or better value. So we kind of have a built-in parameter. We have to get at least the value of what we give.
Okay, I guess so I hear the value, but I'm back to, is the motion limiting it to just a land exchange?
I thought so.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So you wouldn't be interested in buying using cash?
Well, I believe there were 3 options for land exchange that were discussed. And so I think that's inclusive as part of the purchase, exchange.
And I thought what Judy moved was where we were going, and the other option that you're talking about, I think we were going to come back and discuss that if this first option didn't pan out. That's what I thought.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
So Allison, just hang in there.
All right. So the motion then is to have staff to explore an exchange based on what we were talking about in executive session. Correct?
Yes.
Do you want any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, don't have to see any hands. Is that a roll call or just a voice vote? Mr. Apicillo? Kathy?
I would do a roll call.
Roll call? Okay.
I was going to say I lost my internet connection, so I'm in the middle of it here.
Oh.
So Hoagland?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Parsons?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Casper?
Yes.
And Hinton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Good. Anything else from executive session? Mr. Chandler, did you get any more comments in from the public?
I had one from Laura Jokey. I'm not at my computer any longer, but she agreed that with the emails that the 6 were not, that it ought to be more than 6 on the VRDs. I will send that out all to you so that you have a copy of it. So I make sure I get that right.
All right. Thank you. All right. Counselors, you guys got any Deanna, anything you want to say?
I do. I just wanted to bring up again the idea of the 10 o'clock closure for restaurant and bars, and I just want to put that as a tickler for Ron to check it out because I couldn't find any reason for it. So,
good point.
And I don't want to be arbitrary and say, cut it in half and say midnight because that's just as arbitrary as perhaps 10 o'clock is. I don't know. Anyway, if we could just find that out. And then Ron, I was going to suggest that everybody watch the Commissioners Board of Commissioners meeting today. It's worth your time. They go over a lot of detail. And one of the things, Ron, is to you. I said that Lincoln City has to provide hotel accommodations for isolating. And I think we're the last, it sounded like we were the last city to provide that. Because they were sending in their application today, so they needed that.
Okay.
And then I only have one more question. My favorite one is, did we receive a check for $415,000 from the county? As if you know off the top of your head.
I don't know off the top of my head. I'll find out.
Yeah, just wrap this little package up, that's all.
Gee, and Debbie's not waiting on the line either, so. All right. Is that all, Deanna?
Yes, thank you.
Judy?
Nope, I'm good. Nope.
Diane?
Yes, I have a question. Well,
okay.
I had two, and one was how to support the 10 o'clock curfew and explain that. So thank you, Deanna, for that one. The other one is who monitors the compliance on guidelines at Safeway? Who is the one, it does get pretty crowded in there. And so who, is it a state thing? Is it a city thing? Who monitors them?
Chief, I think that's the police. Who monitors the compliance at Safeway? I'm going to bring the chief over.
Okay.
Who monitors the compliance?
Get him off the record.
Yeah, at this time, there's been absolutely no direction for law enforcement to get involved in the businesses and their enforcement. The compliance inside the stores is totally on the management of each individual business.
Interesting. Okay. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Why is that?
Anything else, Diane?
No, those are mine. Thank you.
Mitch?
Stay healthy, change your air filter.
Oh, okay. Riley?
Mitch, I lost it because of Mitch, but, are we able to help Dan with that application thing, the temporary thing?
Yeah, so the reason I'm in the council chambers is my computer froze up, so I came in here, took a couple minutes to talk with him. I'm going to put in a call to OLCC tomorrow. I think we have it worked out, but I'll verify it all tomorrow.
Great, thank you. And then I would just encourage anybody to watching, I know the city's doing lots of things, or we're trying to do as much, and a lot of the individual businesses have been doing like GoFundMe's. And if you were wanting to help local businesses but don't know how, or you're not here or anything like that, if you just go, I'm sure a lot of them have it. And I would just, like earlier, Chris Donner was on about Game Over, and I know there's a couple other businesses that are having that. So if you're looking at ways to support and safely and remotely, I think that's a great place to do and help local businesses. So I just encourage that. Yeah, the other one, the only other that comes to mind is the Loom over there in Nelscott, but I know there's more than that. So, and then that's it.
Kathy, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I have information on the liquor license.
Okay.
I called OLCC today, and this is the third time. The state cannot waive what our code requires for the process. I received the background check information about 5 o'clock today, so we can proceed with that. It is a $75 fee instead of a $100 fee, so that is a savings, but we still have to go through the process. I've checked, and that's the 90-day temporary that he displays is what they always write in advance when they're in the process for the city to do their check. The form on the front has a place for the city to sign, and it's signed, the temporary is signed by OLCC, and then the city has to go through their process and sign that application form. So it's yeah.
Kathy, if the fee is paid and the background check is clear, will you be recommending that in your council communication that the council approve it?
That's up to the chief who does the background check.
If the background was clear and the fee was paid, it would be a recommendation of approval.
Yes, correct.
Kathy shared with me a handout from the state that said that all city and county requirements still apply. So our ordinance wasn't waived by the fact that they allowed for this. So I would ask if council's willing to, by unanimous consent, approve the license subject to the background passing and the payment of the fee.
Sure.
So moved.
Is there anybody that would object to that unanimous opinion?
No.
I don't have an objection. I just have a question of why is this the only business that's having this issue? If this is the process that is happening, why is only one? Why is it only happening to one business?
It shouldn't have been a problem. He was advised numerous times that he had to follow the process. So Kathy did, I did.
The application is the same as the one that's on the consent agenda for an off-premises sales license.
So every business in town that has an off-premises license, business alcohol license, every business in town has gone through this exact same process, but none of it has come to council because why?
We passed them, Riley.
I understand. No, I understand that, but we already passed.
They all have. the on-premises and the off-premises all come to council for their approval.
Yeah, I understand that. But if this is a COVID special off-premises, how come other businesses didn't have COVID special off-premise licenses?
To my knowledge, no one has applied for it. He's the only one that has applied for it.
Okay. Yeah, so I second Deanna's motion then, but if that hasn't been a motion.
No motion. Where are you? Are you listening to?
I thought she made a motion.
It's unanimous consent.
Oh,
that's right. It's late. I understand.
I want to go to.
All right. Unanimous consent. Kathy, you okay with that for tomorrow? You'll be able to.
Usually we do it by motion, but.
Now you're going to make me look bad in front of Riley.
Sorry.
I thought Deanna said I make that motion, and I seconded that motion.
I was writing it as a motion.
Oh, yeah, I had advice from our city attorney that we could do it unanimous consent. We're doing it unanimous consent. Forget that motion.
Got it.
Thank you.
I vote yes anyway, Kathy. Just
yes. All right, Councilor Mark.
Thank you. No, I think I've said all I need to say.
You all right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, it's after 10. It's time to leave. Thank you all for the 5.5 hours you've spent.
Yeah. All right. And thanks for everyone with our comments today. That was great.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Take care.